Chapter 980. In the quiet towering sky city, every carved railing and painted building had their own unique craftsmanship. Exquisite works of art from the 100 races were displayed here. The entire city did not look like a residence, but more like a museum. The main hall of the towering sky city was where its essence lay. However, the people in the hall were not in the mood to enjoy it. Li Qingshan's astonished voice echoed in the empty hall. Transform into a well. Senior, do you want to form a world of your own, or merge with the 9 provinces? Little N seemed to have understood something. Since I want to stay in this world forever, it's naturally the latter. However, it's not merging. If it does, it'll be over. The Banyan Tree King then looked at Li Qingshan. If I use the Azura field in your hand as an example, I want to become an artifact spirit. I want to use my own heart as the heart of the heavens and use my own consciousness to replace the consciousness of this world. Only now did Li Qingshan understand why the Banyan Tree King kept expanding his branches without caring about the price. It was like moss growing on the walls of a well. What an inconceivable ambition. But what do you want to do? Could it be that you want to expand to cover the entire 9 provinces? This was impossible. Even if the humans did not obstruct the Banyan Tree King's actions, he did not know how long it would take him. His lifespan was definitely not that long. Of course not. The Banyan Tree King smiled and waved his hand. He turned around and walked into the depths of the hall until he arrived in front of a mental map of the 9 provinces. Every world has its own laws. If you want to replace the consciousness of this world, you must first understand the laws of this world. However, the laws of a world are profound and complicated. It is not something that can be completely understood with the so-called comprehension ability. You must have a large number of calculations. Although too many branches are not beneficial to cultivation, it can greatly increase the speed of calculations. Li Qingshan had a strange expression. The thousands of kilometers of forest he had walked through had turned into a hole in his mind. Every branch of the banyan tree was both a collector and a calculator of information. Countless pieces of information were transmitted through every root and finally gathered here to decipher the code of heaven and earth. This did not sound like something a monster would do. The Banyan Tree King in front of him was like a 3-dimensional projection. Its real identity was a giant supercomputer. No wonder you're known for your profound wisdom. However, what's the result of deducing the laws of heaven and earth? The result is not bad. At the very least, it is very helpful for divination. However, Qiongqi's trap is far beyond my divination ability. The difference between our levels is too great. I believe you already know that there might be a time trap in this bet. Li Qingshan nodded. If I can succeed, I will be able to lend you a hand. The Banyan Tree King said. A single demon king was nothing more than an ant in front of Qiongqi. However, if it transformed into a world, even Qiongqi wouldn't be able to go against it directly. I also hope that you can succeed, but how can I help you? I don't understand any laws of heaven and earth. Li Qingshan said. Compared to something as troublesome as comprehending the laws of heaven and earth, he preferred to use brute force to destroy the laws of heaven and earth. Just comprehending the laws of heaven and earth is useless. Although you can better adapt to this world and use these laws in various aspects, it's just like how even if you see through every grain on the walls of a well, you won't be able to turn it into a well. Comprehending is just the first step. Furthermore, with my current realm, it's impossible for me to completely comprehend it. It's like an ant trying to shake a tree. The Banyan Tree King sighed. Even if he used all sorts of methods to make up for it, a 3rd heavenly tribulation realm was still too low. Isn't that a dead knot? Li Qingshan asked. There's always a way out. An ant can shake a tree. Even a dead knot can be solved. Do you know of the mountain water divine seal? The Banyan Tree King asked. I know. I've even refined a few before. Li Qingshan seemed to have understood something. From a certain perspective, the mountain god's seal and water god's seal were the condensation of the laws of heaven and earth. Then do you know of the 9 cauldrons? The banyan tree king asked again. Who doesn't know about the national treasures of Great Xia? It's said that they've been forged from all the god's seals in the world. They can suppress the fortune of the 9 provinces and make the world devoid of gods. Li Qingshan came to a realization. Grasping a single god's seal meant grasping a river or a mountain range. If he grasped all of the divine seals of mountains and rivers, would he be able to grasp the 9 provinces? Sir, you want to refine the 9 cauldrons and become a god on the spot? That's roughly what I'm thinking, but I don't have that great of an appetite. My current plan is to refine the Mist Province cauldron first, which will greatly extend my lifespan and ensure my own survival. Afterwards, I'll comprehend the laws of the world a step further and use that as a breakthrough until the day I succeed. Sir, you want me to go to the King of Southern Yu's estate and steal the Mist Province cauldron? Li Qingshan frowned slightly. Even if the King of Southern Yu's estate was not as tightly guarded as Towering City, it was definitely not a place easy to enter or leave, let alone the fact that he had to bring his supreme treasure with him. It really was not a simple matter, and regardless of whether he succeeded or not, he would directly fall out with the King of Southern Yu. That's not it. The banyan tree king waved his hand, and the surroundings twisted and changed. He arrived in a huge hollow in the center of the banyan tree. The Mist Province cauldron. Li Qingshan's eyes narrowed. All he saw was an ink-green, 3-legged cauldron sitting in the center of the hollow. Countless famed mountains, great rivers, and wondrous treasures were engraved on the cauldron. It was a style unique to the Mist Province. Gazing deeply, the flat image seemed to turn into countless mountains and rivers, buried deep within the mist. It was one of the 9 cauldrons, the Mist Province cauldron. The Mist Province cauldron was not particularly large, but it gave off an extremely heavy feeling, as if it was the condensation of the Mist Province that spanned 100,000 kilometers. Even with countless aerial roots wrapped around it, it struggled to hide its profound light. I obtained this cauldron 5,000 years ago. The banyan tree king stroked the inscriptions on the cauldron gently, removing some of the roots wrapped around it. Sir, why haven't you been able to refine the cauldron? Li Qingshan was slightly surprised. The Great Xia Empire had only been established for 5,000 years, so didn't that mean the King of Southern Yu had given the cauldron to him as soon as it was forged? It's not time yet. The 9 cauldrons are a single entity, possessing the power to rule the world. Let alone refining it, even shaking it will be difficult. In the past few years, I've only been deriving its structure in preparation for refining it in the future. Has the time come now? Take a closer look. The banyan tree king pointed at the cauldron. Only then did Li Qingshan see a few black spots on the cauldron. They seemed like rust, but he would not be able to tell if he did not look carefully. These are demon caverns. That's right. The laws of the world that these demon caverns destroy and corrode this world have also manifested on the Mist Province cauldron. This is where the cauldron's weakness lies. What can I do for you? Destroy the Mist Province cauldron. Before he had seen the Mist Province cauldron, Li Qingshan really did not believe there was anything in the world he could not destroy, but now, he was no longer that confident. I've forged it after so much difficulty. Will it still be effective even if I destroy it? Chapter 981. But Senior said the 9 cauldrons are a single entity. If we attack the Mist Province cauldron, won't the other cauldrons react? Little and noticed the problem. Exactly. In particular, the Dragon Province cauldron is the leader of the 9 cauldrons, so it will suppress the other 8 cauldrons. Normally, destroying one cauldron is equivalent to destroying all 9 cauldrons. However, I can temporarily cut off the connection between the Mist Province cauldron and the other cauldrons. The banyan tree king smiled. After all, forging the 9 cauldrons was my suggestion in the first place. Li Qingshan and Little and looked at one another. This plan sure was far-reaching. Alright, then allow me to assist you. Li Qingshan was about to take a step forward. Hold on. I've already waited for several millennia, so there's no need for me to be in such a hurry. This matter needs to be completed in one go. You've just gone through a great battle, so your vitality still hasn't completely recovered. You might as well rest for a few more days and recover to peak condition. The banyan tree king suddenly sighed. His eyes were rather worried. I also have some matters that I need to deal with on my end. Yeah, fair enough. This was the first time Li Qingshan had seen the banyan tree king react like that. He had no idea what matters he had yet to deal with after preparing for several millennia. However, it was inappropriate for him to ask. If there's anything I can help you with, feel free to ask. The banyan tree king nodded and recovered his composure. Take these spiritual stones for now. When Li Qingshan heard spiritual stones, he did not pay too much attention to them. He had seen plenty of spiritual stones, and they were basically worthless to him now. He even found it strange why the banyan tree king had suddenly become so stingy. Only when a few spiritual stones landed in his hand did he become surprised. The spiritual stones all gave off a faint, green mist. They did not seem particularly special, but the spiritual energy they contained was tremendous and pure, enough to rival the demon heart of a demon king and the sarira of a monk king. Refining demon hearts and relics was an extremely troublesome matter. It was inevitable that there would be many negative effects, and even inner demons would be born. However, these spirit stones did not have these problems at all. Li Qingshan tried to probe them with his divine sense and found that these spirit stones did not stop there. They also contained a trace of the mysterious laws of heaven and earth. If he could refine and absorb them, he would definitely gain endless benefits. Many thanks, fellow Taoist. Is there anything else? Don't be greedy, kid. These spiritual stones didn't form naturally. They all come from the Mist Province cauldron. Over the past several thousand years, only a few have condensed. Go! The banyan tree king waved his hand with a smile. Li Qingshan put away the spirit stones and casually cupped his fists. His figure distorted and disappeared. Only the banyan tree king remained in the empty tree hole. He turned around and gazed at the Mist Province cauldron before suddenly letting out a long sigh. Why aren't you coming out yet? I'm the problem you want to deal with, right? Madame Teng's lingering voice rang out in the banyan tree king's ears. Her arms wrapped around him naturally, and the tips of her fingers gently touched his furrowed brows. Do you really have to sigh like that? Once I refine the Mist Province cauldron, I'll assist you in ascending with everything I have, said the banyan tree king. No, we'll ascend together. Madame Teng wrapped herself even tighter around him. Stop pestering me. This won't benefit you at all. We'll part ways one day. The banyan tree king patted her back. No, we'll ascend together. Madame Teng repeated stubbornly before pleading again, Old man, I'm begging you, all right? Sigh, you're still too young. The banyan tree king closed his eyes gently. In a daze, he saw the scene from 5,000 years ago when the valiant king of the 9 provinces gave him a tiny, wilted, golden vine as a gift. This sun vine is a natural variant. It doesn't belong to this world in the first place. If even you aren't willing to take it in, there won't be a place for it in the 9 provinces anymore, said the Lord of the world. If regular trees were entangled by the sun vines, they would wither and die in a few days. Only relatively powerful grass elves could endure their entanglement. However, as long as they possessed some intelligence, who would be willing to let them entangle themselves? They would definitely eliminate them as soon as possible. As a result, the banyan tree king allowed it to cling to him. Many other folk and demons under his command wanted to kill it, but he stopped them all. I can let it share some of the dew with me, and it won't harm me at all. Why must I kill it? She did not let down his benevolence, constantly absorbing the tree's sap and strengthening day by day. In less than 300 years, she underwent the heavenly tribulation and became a demon general, becoming a demon king 800 years ago. To demons, this cultivation speed was startlingly fast, let alone the fact that she was a plant demon who cultivated the slowest. Apart from her natural talent, the Banyan Tree King's sacrifice played a crucial role. He allowed her to absorb the tree's sap day and night, guiding her carefully from the moment she gained intelligence. It was no less than what the divine Wudong tree had invested into the little phoenix. His uncomplaining efforts were rewarded as well. She became the final and strongest barrier of Towering City. Although it had only been 500 years since she underwent the third heavenly tribulation, her strength far surpassed regular demon kings. And, under her intentional control, it was no longer a one-sided devouring. Instead, it assisted his cultivation, forming a harmonious symbiosis. This was another victory for the Banyan Tree King in upholding his principles. The other folk and demons who wanted to kill her all admired his wisdom and breadth of mind. However, even with his wisdom, it was impossible for him to calculate everything, especially when it came to sentient beings and the subtle changes in their emotions. Unknowingly, she began to address herself as his wife, causing everyone to call her Madame Teng. He had treated it as a joke, but he did not expect her obsession to be so strong. I don't live for benefits either. Madame Teng hugged the Banyan Tree King tightly, but her pursed lips revealed her stubborn determination. Li Qingshan and Little An had just been moved back to Towering City. They were about to walk around and take a good look around when thousands of sun vines that were as slender as snakes and as bright as gold swarmed in through the window. Madame Teng. Li Qingshan immediately pressed down on the hilt of his saber. From the first time he saw Madame Teng, he knew that he could not treat her as a regular demon king. Back in the Azura field, he felt it was dangerous even when facing a sun vine that did not possess any intelligence at all. Even the powerful Foundation establishment cultivators under Prince Si Qing were entangled to death, so Madame Teng's strength could be deduced. Although plant-type demons like her had the disadvantage of not being able to move freely, they were extremely powerful in their own territory. If it were not for the fact that he trusted the Banyan Tree King very much, he would not have come to Towering City at all. However, he did not have any relations with Madame Teng. The sun vines did not attack. Instead, they intertwined and formed a golden staircase. One of the vines even twisted into the word, please. Li Qingshan and Little An exchanged glances and stepped onto the staircase. They arrived in the sky above Towering City. Countless golden vines quickly weaved into a golden building, and the golden staircase pointed towards it. The moment Li Qingshan stepped into the building, the door was closed. He cupped his hands and said, Madame Teng, how may I help you? I wouldn't dare to help you, but I have something to ask of you. Although I don't think you can destroy the Mist Province cauldron, please mind your own business. Madame Teng's voice echoed through the building. She called it a request, but it was very rude. Li Qingshan was never one to be provoked. Coupled with the fact that he was still tipsy, he laughed loudly and said, I do have some confidence. Ignorant child. You think you're helping him, but you're actually harming him. Madame Teng said angrily. Oh. What do you mean? Li Qingshan asked curiously. You're preventing him from ascending. He doesn't want to ascend either. As the saying goes, it's better to be the head of a chicken than the tail of a cow. Instead of becoming the lackey of those demon gods after ascending, he'd rather be with the world and be the god of the 9 provinces. Don't listen to that old man's nonsense. Since ancient times, no one has ever succeeded in something like this. Do you know what the consequences are if you fail? In the ancient times, before the 9 cauldrons appeared, countless godly seals were scattered all over the world. There were people who dreamed of this and wantonly conquered and collected the godly seals. In the end, they were devoured by the godly seals, and their souls were destroyed, Madame Teng said. Li Qingshan believed her. Being the god of a mountain or a river and being the god of a prefecture were 2 completely different concepts. Just like how it was easy to rule a village or a town, it was impossible to rule a country without the corresponding strength to be a commoner. This was why there was the mountain god's seal and the water god's seal but not the sea god's seal. The sea was too vast, and there were countless mountain ranges at the bottom of the sea. It was not a place that ordinary demon kings could control. If they tried to forcefully condense the godly seal, they would only be throwing their lives away. However, the Banyan Tree King's ultimate goal was to encompass all of this and control all of the mountains and seas. It was indeed like a daydream. However, since the old man dares to do this, he must have a certain amount of confidence. Just because no one has ever done it doesn't mean it can't be done. The old man's wisdom is profound, and some people can't compare to him. Damn it! How dare you speak to me like this? Do you believe that I won't pester you to death? Every single sun vine in the building wriggled. Li Qingshan immediately felt his strength disperse uncontrollably. If it were not for the support of the strength of the earth, he probably would have run out of strength in no time. He immediately understood that she had already turned this extraordinary talent into an ability. It was truly terrifying. However, he was unfazed. He said proudly, "I don't believe it." In the end, Madame Teng could not lay her hands on the guest invited by the Banyan Tree King. She sighed and said, "You really don't understand. You've come to help him because he is the Banyan Tree King. If he succeeds, will he still be the same person?" Li Qingshan fell silent. He had discussed the will of the world with the Banyan Tree King many times, and they had many guesses. In particular, whether the so-called self existed in the world or not. Although he had once received an invitation from the Azura realm, he did not feel that he was speaking to the Azura realm. However, at the very least, one thing was certain. The will of the world was definitely different from the will of living beings. Therefore, after the Banyan Tree King succeeded, no one could say for sure what would happen to him. However, once he started on this path, there was no possibility of turning back. Do you understand now? I'm doing everything for his own good. Don't be a hindrance here. I will get him to give you the fruit of wisdom that he promised you. Go back to your Qingzhou. Madame Teng's voice turned gentle as she guided him patiently. The towering tree remained silent. It did not interrupt this conversation, as if it was waiting for his decision. Chapter 982. Li Qingshan wavered slightly after hearing Madame Teng's words. However, he asked himself, will I no longer be me once I reach beyond the 9 heavens? As a result, he no longer hesitated. Only people with unbelievable dreams would believe in another unbelievable dream. You don't care about his life or death at all, which is why you can say something like that. Madame Teng was furious. For a moment, killing intent permeated the air. Li Qingshan said, if you really care about him so much, you should be lending him a hand instead of obstructing him. Shut up. I'm doing this for our future. The sun vines twisted and danced like snakes, swarming over and wrapping around him. However, the spirit turtle's profound shell stopped them. I think you're doing this for your own future. Li Qingshan sneered. With a clang, he drew his blade. Little and gripped the hilt of his sword firmly. The Buddha-slaying sword was rather effective against opponents with large bodies and great recovery. To Madame Teng, even if Li Qingshan cut through all the vines here, he would not be able to harm her at all. Meanwhile, the Buddha-slaying sword only needed to cut through a single vine, and it would be enough to extend its body and harm her. However, Xiao An's emotions fluctuated in a peculiar manner, so she hesitated slightly with her strike. Alright, stop messing around. At this moment, the Banyan Tree King's voice rang out. There was some helplessness in his voice, but it left no room for doubt. You only know how to side with outsiders. Madame Teng backed away reluctantly. Thank you for your trust. That's extremely precious to me. The Banyan Tree King said to Li Qingshan. You're welcome. I'm still hoping that you'll succeed and assist me in the future. Li Qingshan smiled. That day will definitely come. The two demon kings eagerly anticipated that day. Little and gazed at the sun vines wrapped tightly around the tree and sighed inside. When Li Qingshan returned to towering Sky City, the originally tranquil and peaceful atmosphere changed. He keenly felt the omnipresent hostility and knew that Madame Teng hated him. He smiled and didn't take it seriously. In the blink of an eye, a few days had passed. Li Qingshan had absorbed a spiritual stone from the Banyan Tree King, and his vitality had all recovered to peak condition. He stood before the Mist Province cauldron again. "Are you ready?" asked the Banyan Tree King. "All right. But is fellow Taoist really going to do that?" Li Qingshan asked. "It's not what I want, but I have no choice." The Banyan Tree King sighed. "All right then." Li Qingshan nodded and no longer hesitated. He took a step forward and stood before the Mist Province cauldron, but he did not strike immediately. Instead, he stared at the engravings on the cauldron deeply. Gradually, nothing else existed in his eyes. All that remained was the Mist Province cauldron. The endless sea of trees, mountains, and rivers all appeared before him. It was as if he was not facing a cauldron, but the Mist Province that spanned 100,000 kilometers. The tremendous pressure became more and more obvious. Before he had even struck, he felt like he was carrying a mountain on his back. And, behind the Mist Province was an even vaster world. That was the 9 provinces of the world, like they were a single entity. It was unshakable. It was definitely unshakable. Li Qingshan pursed his lips and clenched his fists, allowing the power of tremors to constantly gather around him. His body trembled slightly, but he still did not strike, as if he was waiting for something. The Banyan Tree King nodded in satisfaction. If he were a regular demon king, he definitely would not be able to endure such tremendous pressure. He would either directly retreat in defeat or strike out blindly. He probably would not even be able to leave a mark on the Mist Province cauldron. The Banyan Tree King spread his arms. At that moment, every single banyan tree in the sea of trees that stretched for tens of thousands of kilometers trembled and swayed. The sound of water was deafening, surging like waves that approached from afar and gathered towards the Banyan Tree King. The aerial roots spread out madly, covering the walls of the tree hole densely. However, the aerial roots around the Mist Province cauldron rapidly receded, revealing the cauldron in its entirety. It glowed with magnificent light. "Seal." The Banyan Tree King spat out a single word quietly, and the light from the cauldron dimmed. Li Qingshan's eyes lit up. Like a flash of lightning, all of the illusions of mountains and rivers shattered. There was still the Mist Province cauldron before him, as if it had been isolated from the 9 provinces. The pressure it brought him immediately decreased. He punched out with both fists and bellowed out, "Boom!" Thunk! A great sound rang out like a great bell, reaching thousands of kilometers away. Under the night sky, Yi Weiyang stood high above the sea of trees. An inky, green pillar of light rushed into the air. It was even thicker and vaster than the Banyan Tree King's body, like a pillar that supported the heavens. With it as a foundation, a tremendous formation that enveloped tens of thousands of kilometers was activated. She frowned as if she was worried about something. She said with an almost indiscernible voice, "Don't." In the sea of trees, all the living beings either understood what was going on or were at a loss. They all gazed in the direction of towering city. Tens of thousands of kilometers away, the king of Southern Yu suddenly sensed something in the Silver Dragon King. He smiled. It's finally begun. The full-powered strike that Li Qingshan had prepared for a very long time only made the Mist Province cauldron tremble and leave behind 2 indiscernible imprints. There were a few cracks, but the moment he pulled his fist back, the cracks closed up. As it seemed, the Mist Province cauldron would be as good as new in the blink of an eye. However, the booms constantly echoed through the tree hole, slamming against his soul viciously like a series of questions, asking him why he was bold enough to offend the imperial authority of the heavens. It really is tough. Li Qingshan laughed. If the Mist Province cauldron did not respond at all, it would instead be far too boring. Roar! A tiger's roar drowned out the booms. Li Qingshan's blood surged, and his skin became scarlet red. The inscription of a beast spread across his forehead, forming a king character, the tiger demon's fury. Thump! 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 The booms rang out endlessly, ringing through the surroundings. Li Qingshan's figure blurred, turning into a storm and bombarding the mist province cauldron furiously. In his fury, he still retained a sliver of clarity in his mind. The black specks on the cauldron healed much more slowly when they were damaged, as if they were the cauldron's lifeline. Apart from the initial probing, his punches had all landed on the black specks. The imprints constantly caved in, and the cracks rapidly spread until they became a crack. Suddenly, a streak of rainbow light shot out. Nice! The Banyan Tree King praised. He also used his full strength. Not only did he seal up the Mist Province cauldron, but he also mobilized transparent, jade-green aerial roots that wrapped around Li Qingshan's legs, channeling tremendous amounts of spiritual energy into his body. The tiger demon's fury was powerful, but it also placed a great burden on Li Qingshan. It could be said that if he wanted to injure his enemy, he would injure himself first. He could not maintain it for too long. However, with the Banyan Tree King's full support, the various negative effects were suppressed to the limit, allowing him to unleash his destructive power to his heart's content without any worries. Streaks of rainbow light shot out, and more cracks appeared on the Mist Province cauldron. At this moment, Madame Teng suddenly appeared in the tree hole. She was extremely stern. She had never expected Li Qingshan to actually possess such strength. She bit her lip and shot a vicious glance at the Banyan Tree King before making her way towards Li Qingshan. Li Qingshan seemed to be completely submerged in the pleasure of destroying the Mist Province cauldron. His back was completely unguarded. Don't do anything stupid. The Banyan Tree King frowned. His voice was solemn and loud, as dignified as a god's. Madame Teng was immediately restrained, immobilized. However, she said disdainfully, "Humph, damned old man, I might not be as clever as you, but you can't stop me either. Just obediently undergo the heavenly tribulation and ascend with me." She raised her right arm high into the air, and the sun vines around the great banyan tree suddenly tightened. A streak of golden light twisted and coiled around the great banyan tree, wrapping around the dark green light. The light immediately began to fade, while the golden light rapidly strengthened. Li Qingshan immediately felt the pressure from the Mist Province cauldron increase drastically. Even the cracks showed signs of closing up, so he gritted his teeth and continued his assault. If the Banyan Tree King were restrained, he would not be able to destroy the Mist Province cauldron alone. Why must you do this? Seeing how the plans of half his life were about to come to nothing, the Banyan Tree King let out a sigh and closed his eyes gently. Old man, I've let you down, but I will be with you forever. I'll make it up to you tenfold, 100-fold. Please forgive me. Madame Teng's voice came to a halt, and she vomited a mouthful of golden blood. A shiny, white blade protruded from her chest. Little N stood behind Madame Teng, gripping the hilt of his sword with one hand as his white clothes drifted about. The golden light around the pillar of light immediately collapsed. Even the huge sun vines that resembled golden dragons began to wither at a visible rate. Yi Weiyang stared at this and smiled bitterly. At the very least, she should be glad that she did not have to do anything herself. Li Qingshan glanced around from the corner of his eye before continuing to destroy the Mist Province cauldron. Everything was going according to plan. The aura of death constantly spread, dyeing Madame Teng's face with a layer of grayish-white. She stared straight at the Banyan Tree King and asked in disbelief, "You really want me dead?" "I'm sorry, but I really can't think of any other way to stop you." The Banyan Tree King seemed to age a lot in that instant. His voice was particularly deep and ancient, but his eyes remained as determined as ever. He could not compromise with everything. Fine then. Madame Teng lowered her head powerlessly. The sunflower in her hair immediately wilted. She murmured to herself, "What? are these 5,000 years? Little and drew the Buddha slaying sword, and pale white flames rapidly swallowed Madame Tang. He raised his head and looked at Li Qingshan. The dazzling, rainbow light coated him with a resplendent ring of light. After who knew how long, Li Qingshan threw a punch into the Mist Province cauldron. Time seemed to freeze for a split second as thousands of colors erupted and flowed before him. Only then did he realize that the Mist Province cauldron had already shattered. Li Qingshan widened his eyes and saw a green heart in the shattered Mist Province cauldron. He came to a realization that this was the Banyan Tree King's demon core, and the tree hole happened to be where the heart of the Banyan Tree King resided. The heart of the tree absorbed the thousands of colors and suddenly shone with countless streaks of light. As a matter of fact, it even pierced through the thick tree trunk and produced a beautiful glow in the night sky, vaguely displaying the various sights of the Mist Province. In the end, it condensed into a map of the Mist Province, hovering in the air. The Banyan Tree King stood there without moving. Only the color of his eyes constantly changed. Li Qingshan frowned. Originally, the Banyan Tree King was the tranquility of a tree. Within the tranquility, he radiated with benevolence and life. Now, he was the tranquility of the sky, with a hint of emptiness within the tranquility. He viewed everything as nothing. Chapter 983. Success or failure all depended on this. At this moment, the Banyan Tree King's tremendous numbers came into play. Every single great banyan tree seemed to be an independent entity, yet they were also connected together through their countless roots. Tremendous amounts of information flowed through them. All of a sudden, each of the great banyan trees glowed with a colorful brilliance, and the vast forest turned into a beautiful sea of light. The demons and other folk who lived there all looked around in surprise. Then they saw the map of the Mist Province hanging high in the night sky slowly descend, growing closer and closer and becoming larger and larger. When they raised their heads, they could clearly see the countless mountains and rivers as if they were tangible. It was like the end of the world had arrived. Cries rose and fell in the sea of trees. Yi Weiyang stood in the sea of trees and gazed at the descending Mist Province. She smiled. A mountain hung upside down, pressing down on her. She did not dodge, passing through it. The demons and other folk looked around in a panic, but they discovered that the disaster they were imagining did not happen. The Mist Province had merged with the sea of trees, swallowed by the sea of light. A while later, all of the light receded, and the forest returned to how it was before, as if nothing had happened at all. Only the kings could deeply sense the profound changes. They all beamed with joy and wished in the direction of Towering City. The Banyan Tree King exhaled deeply. His eyes returned to their inky green, but his tree heart continued to shine resplendently. His aura became more and more distant, but it did not feel like his personality had changed drastically. Instead, it was a very natural form of growth and improvement. Congratulations, fellow Taoist. Congratulations. You've succeeded. Li Qingshan clasped his hands and congratulated. He admired the Banyan Tree King very much. Although it was not some natural divine tree, it had pushed its special characteristics to the limit. After several millennia of painstaking planning, it had created an unprecedented path, which made him very excited. It's just the first step. The Banyan Tree King waved his hand. However, once you take this step, the other 8 cauldrons will sense it. The imperial clan of the Dragon Province will definitely be furious, said Li Qingshan. Li Qingshan said. Great Xia wanted to rid the world of gods, yet the Banyan Tree King had directly become the god of the Mist Province and even destroyed their national treasure. It would be strange if they did not react at all. Don't worry, they won't attack. The Banyan Tree King's eyes flickered with the light of wisdom. He had already deduced the cause and effect of everything. Now, he could see it even more clearly. You're right. Li Qingshan said with a smile. The current Banyan Tree King had already stepped into a whole new realm. In the world of the 9 states, he was almost invincible. If the Great Xia dynasty wanted him to fall, it was likely that even the Great Xia dynasty could not afford to pay such a price. Is it worth it? Little An suddenly asked the Banyan Tree King. The Banyan Tree King was speechless. The atmosphere suddenly became heavy. Little An. Li Qingshan was slightly surprised, but he saw a rare expression of pity on her face. He could not help but sigh. There's nothing we can do about it. That Madame Teng has gone too far. Is it worth it? Little An did not look at Li Qingshan and asked further. The Banyan Tree King closed his eyes as if he was unable to face her gaze. The sun vines around him had already withered. His body had never been so light before, but he instead felt empty. He was rather unaccustomed to it. If it was not worth it, why would he make a choice like this? If it was worth it, why would the joy of success be unable to make up for this regret? 5,000 years of companionship was really nothing. Was it because he had put in too much effort, such that he could not treat it lightly? Or had he purposefully controlled certain changes in his emotions the entire time? Even though he could comprehend the profound laws of the world, he struggled to resolve these doubts. Forgive me, Senior. I've asked too much. Little An shook her head and returned to Li Qingshan's side. It's not worth it. The Banyan Tree King suddenly opened his eyes. Although there was pain in them, there was no confusion. But if I had to choose again, I would still do the same. Normally, Li Qingshan would definitely praise a reply like that. However, after glancing at Little An beside him, he felt that it was better to remain silent. He did not want to involve himself in other people's matters. I probably will never be able to understand such decisiveness. Little An said as she looked at Li Qingshan with her clear eyes. Li Qingshan's heart sank and the corner of his lips twitched. Fine, he had still gotten himself involved in the end. He tried hard to organize his words. Little An, you're thinking too much. Don't get into character so easily. You're not Madame Teng, and I'm not the Banyan Tree King. Of course, I'm not saying that you're wrong. Anyway. Sigh, it's really complicated. You've actually overestimated the power of this sword. I'm the same. Little An raised the Buddha-slaying sword in her hand. Li Qingshan and the Banyan Tree King were both taken aback. They had personally witnessed the power of the Buddha-slaying sword. Two demon kings as powerful as the lords of Yin and Yang had been finished off with a single stroke, so how could they still overestimate its power? However, it was exactly because that sight was just too shocking that they overlooked many things. For example, back then, the lords of Yin and Yang had already fought Li Qingshan to the point of exhaustion. They had only managed to break free from Li Qingshan's suppression after so much difficulty, but before they could even get their revenge, Little An had already charged over. For example, the Buddha-slaying sword. Although it possessed terrifying power, it actually countered two types of opponents the most. One was Buddhist cultivators, which was why it was called Buddha-slaying. The other was existences of extreme yin and evil, such as corpses and demon folk, because the path of white bone and great beauty was still a Buddhist cultivation method after all. However, Madame Teng did not belong to either of these groups. She did not possess a body of flesh and blood. Although the Buddha-slaying sword countered her very much, it mostly ensured that every strike could injure her. In the past, the myriad poison ancestor had only been heavily injured when the Buddha-slaying sword pierced his chest, and he had almost fled back to the myriad poison cult. The soul nascence that escaped in the end was very spirited too. It took quite a lot of effort to deal with it. After being tempered by the heavenly tribulation, the Buddha-slaying sword's power had increased drastically, but as a natural variant demon king, her life force was far more abundant than an elderly human cultivator. Actually, the only time Little An had truly used the Buddha-slaying sword after undergoing the tribulation was against the lords of Yin and Yang. Only when he stabbed Madame Teng did he understand that the strike was not enough to claim her life, which was why he did not draw it immediately. Between Li Qingshan and the Banyan Tree King, one possessed great instincts for battle, while the other possessed great wisdom. In the past, they had only been shocked by the startling strike, which was why they had overlooked this. Now that Little End had reminded them, they immediately understood. They were both stunned. Li Qingshan felt some lingering fear. In the situation back then, if Madame Teng had struggled a little longer, he would not have been able to shatter the Mist Province's cauldron. If she had blown up her demon core out of fury and hatred, then it would not be as simple as the plan failing. As it turned out, none of this went according to plan. Little End said, "Senior Banyan Tree King, although my strike heavily injured her, the true fatal strike was your determination." Chapter 984. Li Qingshan looked at Little End in surprise. The blurry feeling became extremely clear. She had indeed changed. In the past, Little End would never do these unnecessary things, much less pay attention to the grievances and conflicts of others. If the divine nun of the South Sea was still alive, she should be smiling happily. The Banyan Tree King was stunned for a while before suddenly letting out a long sigh. His eyes became rather moist, but there was actually a hint of a relieved smile on his face. "Fellow Little Anne, thank you for your guidance. Can I ask you to help me out again?" With his sleeves fluttering, the Banyan Tree King bowed deeply towards Little Anne. Even his long beard reached the ground. Li Qingshan was surprised. Just who in the world could receive a bow like that from the Banyan Tree King? However, Little Anne accepted it calmly. She did not mind at all. With a wave of her hand, she said, "There's no need to be so polite, Senior. I'm not helping you." "Oi, girl, that's no good." Li Qingshan was even more surprised. In the past, Little End was emotionless, but she was flawless when it came to etiquette. Even Feng Shiwu praised her. She would never behave so rudely. Shaoan hummed in acknowledgement, but he didn't seem too convinced. "Qingshan, there's no need to say anything more. I'm the one who asked to be humiliated." The Banyan Tree King waved his hand at Li Qingshan and smiled bitterly. Little End glanced at Li Qingshan, as if she was saying, "What do you think?" Li Qingshan shrugged and laid out his hands. All right. A skull prayer bead on Little End's wrist turned into a skull. It opened its mouth and spat out a ball of samadhi flames of white bone, burning silently. Her seaweed-like hair drifted about as two specks of golden light shone in her clear eyes. She murmured, "White bone and great beauty, the cycle of life and death." The almost transparent samadhi flames of white bone gradually materialized. Madame Teng's figure faded in and out. Her eyes were firmly shut as despair froze on her face. Li Qingshan's eyes widened. "You can do that?" Little End said, "I've already said that my sword strike wasn't enough to sever her life force. It was her own mind that was thrown into chaos, causing her to suffer from qi deviation. If I ignore it, she'll definitely die." "So that sword of yours actually saved her?" Li Qingshan felt that it was unimaginable. Little End had brought him too many surprises today. Since white bones can transform into beautiful faces, the sword that kills can also save people. Little Anne's white robes fluttered in the wind. There was a trace of benevolence in her calm demeanor. She had a kind of beauty that could topple the world. This was a brand new understanding of the path of white bone and great beauty after balancing the Buddhist and demonic powers. Although she did not know whether she had taken the wrong path or not, the white bone bodhisattva's original intentions were probably not to kill. Madame Teng's figure gradually solidified, but she still could not stabilize it. To Little Anne, this was the first time she had done something like this. Li Qingshan saw that the Banyan Tree King's face was filled with concern. His vast and distant aura was greatly reduced, making him seem even more like a mortal than before. He thought to himself, "This person must really be an old tree that's sprouting new buds, he's fallen in love. Qingshan, help me." Little Anne flipped her left hand and held a phoenix feather between her fingers, thrusting it towards Madame Teng's forehead. "Coming." Li Qingshan grabbed her hand and circulated the Phoenix Nirvana scripture with all his might. The phoenix feather glowed with resplendent light, transforming into a stream of light and entering Madame Teng's body. Little An let out a sigh of relief. Madame Teng's figure stabilized. She was barely breathing, and she fell unconscious in the Banyan Tree King's embrace. The Banyan Tree King thanked Little An again. Little An said, "She is severely injured, and both her body and mind are in a mess. Senior, please take care of yourself." The Banyan Tree King nodded slightly, closed his eyes, and lowered his head to touch Madame Teng's forehead. The heart of the tree above him glowed with 7-colored light. Wow! Li Qingshan's eyes widened. He saw the Banyan Tree King's lush beard withering, revealing his true appearance. Li Qingshan was about to speak, but the Banyan Tree King waved his sleeve without raising his head. The surrounding scene twisted and changed, and they were teleported out. However, he heard Little An say 2 words, "Give up." Li Qingshan waited in Towering City for a while before Little An was teleported to his side. Little An lowered her head and didn't speak. "What's wrong?" Li Qingshan asked. "If you want to scold me, then go ahead." Little An seemed like she was ready to die. "Why would I scold you?" Li Qingshan smiled. "Really?" Little An blinked her eyes and asked carefully. "Ha, what nonsense are you talking about?" Li Qingshan pulled Little An into his arms as he laughed aloud. He rubbed her hair and gave her a thumbs up. "Moreover, you've done this extremely beautifully. This is the first time I've seen this old man show an expression like that, and what he's like. I really didn't expect it. You don't blame me for acting on my own? My Little An has already grown up. It's time for her to have her own opinions." Li Qingshan did not like Madame Teng, but it was not to the point where he wanted to kill her. As a result, he wanted to confirm the Banyan Tree King's thoughts again before he attacked the Mist Province Cauldron. However, since the Banyan Tree King had made up his mind, there was nothing he could say. It would be for the best of both worlds in the end. What comforted him even more was Little An's changes. He had never agreed with the White Bone Bodhisattva's terrorist ideology, nor did he want Little An to become a second White Bone Bodhisattva. "I just pity her a little." Little An hugged Li Qingshan gently and gazed at the withered vines around the Banyan Tree King. She guaranteed, "I definitely won't be as willful as her. I already told you not to bring things in recklessly. I'm not as great and compassionate as the Banyan Tree King. You know that I'm very selfish and greedy. I don't want to let go of what I have in my hands. If you want to go somewhere without me, I definitely won't let you go." Li Qingshan smiled. "Yeah, I'll definitely take you beyond the 9 heavens." The corner of Little An's lips curled up as she gazed at Li Qingshan deeply. "If I become an obstacle to you one day, I definitely won't make things difficult for you. Then please take care of me, Sir Little An." Li Qingshan laughed aloud. If he did not have her by his side, what was the point even if he went beyond the 9 heavens? He might as well hold on to his dreams and die in battle somewhere. At this moment, the withered vines shone with golden light again, gradually recovering their vitality. "Oh right, why did you stay behind earlier?" Li Qingshan asked. "I wanted to ask him a question," said Little An. "What question?" "If I had to choose again, how would I choose?" "You really know how to get to the bottom of things." But it was a good question. How did he answer? He thought about it for a long time, but he did not answer. Instead, he asked me a question. "Really? What did he ask you?" Li Qingshan could not guess what the Banyan Tree King was thinking. Did he change his mind, or did his heart remain the same, or did he not have an answer? He asked me, "Do you think she will forgive me?" Li Qingshan laughed aloud. He simply could not imagine the expression on the Banyan Tree King's face at that time. "Then how did you answer? What do you think?" "I can't guess. But if it were me, even if I don't take revenge, I will definitely remember him for life." Then I'll have to be careful not to offend a narrow-minded person like you. You dare say that I'm narrow-minded? I'll remember this sentence. Li Qingshan glared at him, pretending to be angry. Oh no. Little and covered her mouth and snickered. Numerous sunflowers bloomed brilliantly like little suns, illuminating the dark canopy of the tree. Chapter 985. A hawk's cry rang through the air. Banyan Tree King, you're one of the 10 demon kings, yet you dare to destroy the 9 cauldrons. Do you know that the laws of the nation are merciless? What a powerful aura. Li Qingshan shivered inside and raised his head. A man in black clothes stood with his arms behind his back, standing high up in the air. The atmospheric winds surged with his voice, spreading through the sea of trees for thousands of kilometers. It was like the might of the heavens had descended upon the world. His appearance was valiant and extraordinary. His long, golden-brown hair draped behind him meticulously, and his hooked nose made him even more stern. However, the thing that stood out the most was his eyes. Outside his dark irises was a faint, golden ring, as if they could see through everything. The hawk god has graced us with his presence. Please forgive me for not going out to welcome you. The Banyan Tree King replied modestly. His voice was tremendous, echoing through the surroundings. He did not lose any of the limelight at all. Sure enough. Li Qingshan thought, there are not a lot of people in the world who are bold enough to speak to the Banyan Tree King like that. Apart from the legendary hawk god that protects the kingdom, there is no one else with such bearing and presence. It's the bird girl's bird father. Little and communicated. Li Qingshan burst into laughter. He felt very comforted inside. The little girl's sense of humor had grown after undergoing the tribulation. In that moment, a pair of hawk eyes pierced through the leaves and landed on him. It was like a blade. There were not a lot of people in the world who were bold enough to laugh when the hawk god and the tree god spoke. Subordinate Li Qingshan greets Sir Hawk God. Li Qingshan's smile vanished. He recalled his identity as a White Hawk commander and clasped his hands at the horizon, meeting the hawk eyes without any fear at all. Although he was in charge of the renowned Hawk Wolf Guard and maintained the laws of the Great Xia Empire, the hawk god was still a form of respect at the end of the day. He was not a true god. However, he had even seen demon god Qiongqi, so he obviously did not fear a demon king, no matter how holy and powerful this demon king was. Savage King Li Qingshan. The eagle deity's eyes narrowed, and Li Qingshan felt the pressure on him increase. He thought to himself, in my entire life, if we were to talk about the word majesty, this person is definitely number 1. This is probably not just because of his temperament, but also the majesty of the laws of Great Xia. As the saying goes, godly might is like a prison. Perhaps this is the origin of his name, Eagle Deity. Even though Qiongqi was far more powerful than the eagle god, it was only an incarnation, and its aura was astonishingly powerful, but it had nothing to do with majesty. Instead, it was sly and playful. Lord Eagle God recognizes me. Li Qingshan was slightly surprised. Then, he smiled and said, however, the title of King of Savages is too unpleasant. I have already resigned. The hawk god looked at him deeply, as if he didn't want to waste any more time with a small fry like him. However, his gaze lingered on Little N for a moment, and there was a hint of surprise in his eyes. After undergoing the 3rd heavenly tribulation, he was basically at the apex of the 9 provinces. With his cultivation at such a young age, he could no longer be described as a genius. Of course, he never would have imagined that the person who personally destroyed the Mist Province cauldron would be this small fry. This was also the effect that Li Qingshan wanted. No matter how much this Lord Eagle God liked him anyway, it was impossible for him to take him in as a son-in-law. He was fine as long as he was not viewed as an enemy. You've come from afar, so why don't you pay a visit to my towering city? Asked the Banyan Tree King. There's no need. Do you admit to destroying the 9 cauldrons? asked the hawk god. I do, said the banyan tree king. From today onwards, you will be stripped of your position as one of the 10 demon kings, and you will be placed at the top of the wanted list of the Ministry of Justice. The Hawkwolf Guard will do everything in their power to capture you. If you put up any resistance, you will be executed on the spot. Li Qingshan found this to be more and more strange the more he listened. At this point, why would the Banyan Tree King still care about the position of one of the 10 demon kings, let alone the fact that he was wanted by some bullshit Ministry of Justice? The Hawkwolf Guard was renowned throughout the world, but capturing or killing him was basically wishful thinking. Was there something wrong with this Protector Hawk God? Before he knew it, the Supreme Masters and tremendous organizations in his heart were no longer as unreachable as before. He could not treat them lightly anymore. All those who make friends with you are the enemies of Great Xia. When the Hawk God reached there, he glanced at Li Qingshan again. He had rushed over in a hurry, so he had no idea that the Banyan Tree King had traveled all the way to welcome Li Qingshan, welcoming him into Towering City. He wondered about the relationship between Li Qingshan and the Banyan Tree King. Then Great Xia has far too many enemies. Please reconsider, fellow. The Banyan Tree King smiled. What a Banyan Tree King. So much for me treating you as a great senior, you've actually broken the law. My Hawkwolf Guard will never forgive you. Li Qingshan yelled out furiously as if he had not vented his anger. He stomped on the branch a few more times to draw a clear line between them. The corner of the Hawk God's eye twitched, and he was immediately unable to continue with what he was about to say. He had seen people seeking death, but never had he seen someone seeking death like this. He thought the same as Li Qingshan earlier. Is there something wrong with this bastard's head? Little and smiled. He was truly an expert at ruining the atmosphere. He could already tell that the Hawk God had come this time purely for a stroll, to express that the Great Xia Empire would never tolerate something like this. However, if he wanted to capture or kill the Banyan Tree King, probably even he did not have the ambition to do so. Sigh, you've been betrayed so quickly. If that's the case, then please take action. The Banyan Tree King sighed with a smile. Wind, rise. The Hawk God spread his arms like a hawk spreading its wings. The atmospheric winds in a range of 500 kilometers immediately became violent. With another powerful swing, it swept down from the sky, and a few clouds were immediately torn to pieces. If it were a regular forest, it would have been reduced to a barren land immediately. Even the roots buried deep underground would have been torn apart, losing all life. It really is impressive. Li Qingshan thought. The atmospheric winds and geomagnetism basically drew up the upper and lower boundaries of this world. To be able to control the atmospheric winds so easily, the Hawk God had already reached the peak of the third heavenly tribulation. He was close to ascending. He focused on the scene of the battle between the two 10 demon kings in preparation for the Ink Sea Dragon slaying. The Banyan Tree King held up a light green canopy. The moment the atmospheric winds entered the canopy, they immediately lost their sharpness and became ordinary gales. The strong gales stirred up waves in the sea of trees. Thousands of banyan trees swayed, forming a vigorous and impassioned tune. Li Qingshan stepped on a branch and looked into the distance. The wind and clouds were raging, and the strong auras in the sea of trees were ready to be released. Although the battle between the Hawk God and the Banyan Tree King was magnificent and impressive, it did not feel like a battle to the death. He thought, since they're going to go through the motions, I'll go along with them to avoid trouble in the future. Lord Eagle God, let me lend you a hand. Li Qingshan bellowed out and unleashed his great strength as a golden core cultivator as well as the superb acting skills he had honed over many years. He launched a barrage of attacks at the Banyan Tree King, personally demonstrating the meaning of an ant trying to shake a tree. With his interference, the great show of a battle between rulers came to an end very quickly. However, before the Hawk God took off, he said, "Pass on my orders." The White Hawk commander of the South Sea Commandery, Li Qingshan, deserves praise for his loyalty and his service as a protector. He will be transferred to the Dragon Province immediately. No mistakes are allowed. Chapter 986. Alright, but you have to admit that my acting in the past was pretty good. Li Qingshan raised his index finger and sighed. Sure enough, modesty makes people improve, while arrogance makes people fall back. However, he was not worried at all. He was no longer the Li Qingshan of the past. There was no need for him to act out every single act carefully, nor was there any need for him to care so much. As for when he would go to the Dragon Province, or even whether he would go to the Dragon Province, it was not up to the Hawk God to decide. Little and nodded with a smile. But why does the mighty Hawk God have to travel such a great distance just to go through the motions? Li Qingshan was rather confused. He had put on an act for the Hawk God to avoid some unnecessary trouble, but who was the Hawk God putting on an act for? Because he's the protector Hawk God. As long as the Great Xia Empire exists, he will continue to protect it, the great banyan tree's voice rang out. I see. In the past, I thought the title of the protector Hawk God was mighty and domineering, but why do I feel like it's just a tough job now? Li Qingshan said. As his cultivation constantly increased, his horizons broadened. When he heard the Golden Cicada Spirit King say, "The 9 provinces are like a well," a few decades ago, he still found it very shocking. Only now did he truly understand. But since the cage has been broken, the bird is free, the Banyan Tree King said leisurely. Freedom. How high can one fly to be considered as true freedom? It's a pity that you'll never have that freedom. Birds have their own freedom, and trees have their own freedom. To a tree, having a place to grow in peace without being cut down is already freedom. Fair enough. Oh right, have you succeeded yet? Li Qingshan smiled ambiguously. This is only the first step. I still need a long time to get used to it. I believe I'll succeed one day, said the Banyan Tree King. You know what I'm asking. Li Qingshan was interested in gossip. About that, actually, it's useless for you to ask little and about this kind of thing. She's just a little girl, what would she know? I'm the one who's experienced and knowledgeable. In short, just do what you need to do. Don't think too much, Qingshan, I'm afraid that Senior needs to rest for a while before he can condense the wisdom fruit. Why don't you take a look at the Shadow Palace first? Little and tugged on Li Qingshan's sleeve, interrupting him. Sure. Li Qingshan agreed casually. When he came back to his senses, he asked, "Do you think I'm wrong?" That's right. Little and nodded seriously, go quickly, there are many things waiting for you to fix in the Shadow Palace. Damned girl, how dare you mock me? Li Qingshan suddenly missed the little and who always looked at him with eyes full of worship. But now, there was a rich emotion in those eyes, and it could see into his heart even more than the eagle gods. The layer of beauty on the white bones was no longer just an empty skin bag. I'm not a little girl. Alright, I'll be right back. Li Qingshan pinched her cheek before turning around and flying off. Speaking of which, he had basically been like an ascetic monk for the past 20 years. Afterwards, there were consecutive battles and intense labor like destroying the Mist Province cauldron. Meeting Gong Yuan was rather interesting to both of them, but it was exactly because of this interest that he was unable to do whatever he wanted. As soon as he thought of the Shadow Palace and the Night Roamers, he even became a little excited. Palace Master Yi, I've come for the appointment. Why do you seem like you've come to visit a brothel? Yi Weiyang's face was covered by a black veil, only revealing a pair of eyes. She studied Li Qingshan. The impression that the battle in the demon cavern had left on her was far too deep. She struggled to connect the two images together. Then I'd like to pick a lead card. Li Qingshan laughed aloud. Hee, then come at me. With a flash, Yi Weiyang vanished into the sea of trees. Li Qingshan followed close behind. Before him, a beautiful figure moved through the jungle, struggling to grasp her aura. In the deep, complicated forest, he was unable to unfurl his wings and fly at full speed either. Every time he approached her, the distance would immediately widen. And, Yi Weiyang did not advance in a straight line. Instead, she turned left and right randomly. She seemed to be flirting with him. As a result, Li Qingshan just gave up on the chase. What, you're not going to pick a lead card? Yi Weiyang smiled. A lead card that I can't even see. It's fine if I don't pick one, just in case I get tricked. Li Qingshan replied with a smile. His eyes remained clear the entire time. After experiencing so many things over the past few decades, he was no longer the bumpkin who had just emerged from a small mountain village and fell in love with Gu Yenying at first sight and was stunned by her beauty. His main objective for visiting the Shadow Palace was not to satisfy his desires, but to put an end to it. Yi Weiyang suddenly stopped and parted the layers of leaves. She said, "Please." A city constructed between huge trees appeared before Li Qingshan. It was hundreds or thousands of times larger than the cobweb city Xin Yan had seen in the past. Thousands of Yi Mingzhu trees shone with a faint, silver luster. The shadows of the trees crisscrossed as thick mist drifted beneath the trees. It seemed both gloomy and glorious. Countless night roamers strolled through it. It was not like he had imagined it to be, a harsh training ground for assassins. Instead, it gave off a sense of art everywhere. However, the many hidden sentry posts could not escape Li Qingshan's eyes. As it seemed, the night roamers had not let down their guard just because they were in the territory of Towering City. They maintained an almost instinctive sense of caution. However, under the Shadow Queen's lead, the journey was smooth and unobstructed. They arrived at the center of the Shadow Palace and saw Yi Liusu and her sisters very soon. He knew that they were doing quite well in the Shadow Palace. After all, with their cultivations at the Second Heavenly Tribulation, they could be regarded as upper middle echelons in any organization across the 9 provinces. Even if there were some internal strife, it would be very difficult to directly affect them. The rich and complete cultivation system that the Shadow Palace had inherited from the ancient Divine Kingdom provided them with great assistance. Over the past 2 decades, they had spent most of their time on cultivation. Yi Liusu's talent had always been the best, and she had received special treatment from Yi Weiyang, who had given her the greatest support. She had improved the most too, and she had a very good chance at succeeding as the Shadow Queen. However, the one who worked the hardest was not her or Yi Liuxing, but the one with the worst talent and the laziest, Yi Liubua. Her bearing had changed drastically as a result. She seemed like a completely different person. Li Qingshan nodded in relief. He had basically lived up to their friendship by bringing them to their current state during this journey. However, it was a pity that this was all they could do. Dong! 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 The knocking on the door echoed in the dark room. Li Qingshan opened his eyes and was just about to rise from the entanglement of a pair of arms when they wrapped around him tightly. "Take me with you," Yi Liubua said. Li Qingshan kissed her forehead gently and caressed her belly. "Take good care of our child." "Will there really be one?" Yi Liubua was rather confused. "There definitely will be one this time. I promise," Li Qingshan said. With the phoenix fire as a guarantee, he had already planted that bit of life. He had no idea what kind of fruit it would bear in the future, but he was destined to never be a good father. "The banquet is about to begin." Yi Weiyang's urging voice rang out from outside the door. Li Qingshan could already sense the tremendous auras gathering in Towering City 1,000 kilometers away. Chapter 987. Basically all the demons and other human kings of the Mist Province had rushed over from all directions, gathering in Towering City to congratulate the Banyan Tree King on becoming the god of the Mist Province. The aura they naturally gave off gathered into a tremendous pressure. Existences who had not undergone the 3rd heavenly tribulation could not even approach it. As for the host, the banyan tree king had yet to appear. Some guests conversed in groups of 2 or 3, while others sat in a corner by themselves, standing out from the crowd. It had to be mentioned that compared to the other human kings, the demon kings in human form seemed more like humans. However, they only seemed like humans. Their primitive, wild aura could not be hidden no matter what. When they were happy, they beamed with delight, but when they were angry, they bared their teeth and glared at each other. Their voices were so loud that they could be heard from several hundred kilometers away. Even human cultivators were not all harmonious, let alone the demons and other humans of the various races. Murderousness would erupt from time to time. If it were not for the fact that this was Towering City, several battles might have already broken out. As for the only human, little Anne, he naturally became the most eye-catching person. Her eyes were lowered as she sat on a banyan tree leaf that resembled a small boat. She held a string of skull prayer beads in her left hand and formed a Buddhist seal with her right hand as she chanted a scripture softly. The little phoenix perched on her shoulder obediently as if he was listening attentively. Both of them had a kind of otherworldly beauty, creating an ethereal and tranquil atmosphere. Even the non-human races could clearly feel it, so they didn't rashly come to disturb them. However, there were many topics of discussion. Why are there humans here? A skinny man who seemed to be forged from scarlet bronze frowned. He was a member of the metal demons of the 7 god races. They possessed indestructible bodies, but they just happened to be excellent materials for forging weapons. Countless metal demons had died to human cauldrons, so they developed a deep grudge. Is that a phoenix? It really is as magnificent as the legends say. A woman said in envy. Her voice was pleasant, and she was petite. Her head was covered in fine, verdant feathers. Clearly, she was a feathered demon king. Little Phoenix's heart was not on the scripture at all. When he heard this praise, he couldn't help but raise his head proudly and was about to sing a few times. Little End glanced at him faintly and he immediately retracted his wings and hung his head down dejectedly. Little End was well aware of Little Phoenix's naughtiness and mischievousness. If he left it alone, it would definitely cause trouble. These days, Little Phoenix had been plucked by her for various reasons, so he was very well behaved. She didn't want to cause trouble, but trouble came knocking on her door. I am young Master Silver Snake. May I know your name? A handsome, feminine, pale-faced scholar flashed over to the branch where Little End was and bowed. His words and actions were refined, but his face had an undisguised covetous look. That's none of your business. Little Phoenix raised his head, once again displaying the results of Li Qingshan's good education. The young Master Silver Snake was taken aback. He never thought that a bird that seemed like a phoenix would speak so vulgarly. He smiled. How bold of you. You're just a mere demon commander, yet you're standing above us. That's far too rude of you. Come on down and let's have a chat. He extended his hand towards the little phoenix. He extended his arm and grabbed Xiao En's shoulder. Hurry up and beat him up. Little En stopped chanting and said. Okay. Little Phoenix was overjoyed. He spread his wings, and with a phoenix cry, he pounced at young Master Silver Snake. Young Master Silver Snake was shocked. He didn't expect a demon commander to have such strength. His speed was even more astonishing. Before he could react, he was thrown off the tree. The demon kings were bored from waiting. Seeing this scene, they immediately cheered. However, to their surprise, although Little Phoenix was at a disadvantage in the beginning due to his lack of battle experience, being injured was nothing to him. Instead, it stimulated his passion for battle. The more he fought, the more courageous he became. After a while, young Master Silver Snake actually couldn't hold on any longer. Little Phoenix turned into a beam of light. Relying on his speed, he flew up and down, using his wings to beat young Master Silver Snake's face. As he beat, he scolded, "That's what you get for being cheap. That's what you get for being cheap." The Demon King's cheers became louder and louder. Mocking laughter rose one after another. Young Master Silver Snake flew into a rage out of humiliation. Killing intent surged in his eyes. With a flip, he turned into a 200 zhang long silver snake. He opened his huge mouth and tried to swallow Little Phoenix. Little Phoenix let out a phoenix cry. His body suddenly expanded in the wind, and his wingspan reached 300 zhang. Although he was much smaller than the silver snake, he emitted an overwhelming light. With a gentle flap of his wings, he arrived above the silver snake. His phoenix claws easily pierced through the silver scales and grabbed onto the snake's spine. Then, he flew into the sky. The silver snake writhed violently, but it couldn't break free. Blood rained down like rain. It felt an instinctive fear, and it couldn't even use 30% of its strength. Generally, the demon race was at their strongest when they transformed into their original form. It was fine if he didn't transform into his original form, but once he did, he was greatly restrained. It was as if he had returned to the desolate era, when the divine bird hunted. Even if there was a big realm difference, he could still dominate it. Little Phoenix's elegant phoenix eyes stared coldly at the silver snake under his claws. His sharp phoenix beak fiercely pecked at the top of the snake's head. Everyone could see that if this peck landed, the silver snake's head would definitely be smashed. Even if it didn't die, it would lose half of its life. It was supposed to be a good show, but it suddenly turned into a life and death battle. They all shouted, "Stop! This is Towering Sky City." Little Phoenix's killing intent rose, but he didn't care. At this moment, a voice sounded, "Stinking brat, come over here." Little Phoenix blinked and threw away the silver snake under his claws. He turned around and flew towards the forest. His figure shrank rapidly and turned into a little child again. He threw himself into Li Qingshan's arms and complained, "Big Daddy, where did you go to play? You didn't even bring me along." "I went to give birth to a little brother for you." Li Qingshan smiled. "But I like little girls." Little Phoenix's eyes widened. Li Qingshan was stunned. He didn't expect him to have such ambition at such a young age. He patted his head and said meaningfully, "Then it depends on your fate. You should work harder in the Shadow Palace." Yi Weiyang smiled. Compared to that, Ghost Shadow, she was more interested in Li Qingshan's bloodline. Then forget it. There were only a handful of demon kings and other human kings who had seen Li Qingshan before. They were all surprised by this. The divine bird Phoenix actually had a human father. Just what was going on? And, this human was clearly only at the second heavenly tribulation, yet he could speak and laugh with the Shadow Queen as equals. It was unbelievable. "Fellow Yi, who is he?" The Golden Demon Human King asked with a frown. He lived in the mountains to the northwest, so he did not know Li Qingshan. "Savage." "Oh, wait, it's the White Hawk Commander, Li Qingshan." Yi Weiyang introduced. "The Hawk Wolf Guard." Under everyone's gazes, Li Qingshan immediately felt the pressure on him increase. Apart from the giant Lumberkin King and the others he had seen on the way here, the other demon kings and other human kings all showed contempt and hostility. In just a few short days, the entire world had learnt that the Lord of the Hawk Wolf Guard, the Hawk God, had come to declare war against the Banyan Tree King. He was 10 times, 100 times more despicable than regular humans. "What are you blabbering about, you old hag? Who's the White Hawk Commander? Don't you know I'm about to be promoted?" Li Qingshan shot a glance at Yi Weiyang. He had already grown accustomed to this. Compared to being surrounded by 7 demon kings in the 12 citadel demon formation of the ominous, this was nothing. "You really are a lackey of the Empire. How dare you come to Towering City and die?" The Golden Demon Human King said coldly. "And this is?" Li Qingshan asked again. "The Golden Demon Human King, Tong Gang." "Ha, you'll die from excessive ejaculation." Li Qingshan began to mock him. the little phoenix focused on learning. The golden demon human king cut right to the chase. He threw a punch at Li Qingshan's chest without any prior signs. There was only tough killing intent. He saw how Li Qingshan did not move at all, so he thought he had failed to react in time, which made him even more scornful. With a bang, a wave of air surged out, turning into a fierce gale that swept across thousands of kilometers. There was no gutting as expected. Instead, the golden demon human king's arm produced the sound of twisting metal. Li Qingshan smiled and did not budge at all. The mutant kings and demon kings all widened their eyes. They all saw it extremely clearly. The golden demon human king's punch was not his full strength, but he definitely did not purposefully hold back either. Even demon kings with tough bodies could not take it head-on. Not only did he need great defenses, but he also needed overwhelming strength to achieve something like that. What was even stranger was that Li Qingshan did not even give off an aura. Only Yi Weiyang noticed that a patch of skin on Li Qingshan's chest had turned a faint green. It was the newest ability of the ox demon transformation. The ox demon forges its hide. Not only did the ox demon forges its hide possess startling defenses, but it also shared the same origin as the ox demon's other ability, the strength of the earth. It did not require demon chi to support it, so it had already replaced the spirit turtle's profound shell as his greatest defensive ability. The golden demon human king immediately calmed down. He thought, how dare this lackey of the empire be so careless? I'll show you the power of golden demon humans. Immediately, his fist turned into a drill, pressing down as hard as he could. It began to spin madly and shone with golden light. Li Qingshan raised an eyebrow. He felt a piercing pain on his skin. If he let him drill a few more times, he really would not be able to endure it. As it seemed, the ox demon forges its hide was not invincible. If he continued to stand there without moving, he would end up ripping through his skin. As a result, he casually grabbed the drill. With a splash of sparks, the drill forcefully stopped spinning and twisted in his hand. Actually, what Li Qingshan did not know was that golden demon humans spent most of their time searching for precious metals underground. This drill was a special ability that they had trained since they were young, yet it actually failed to drill through his skin. This was already enough to terrify the golden demon human king. If this were a regular battle, the clash would be over in a split second. He would never have the opportunity to drill through slowly. I'll return a punch to you. Li Qingshan waved his fist and said casually. The golden demon human king's eyes revealed a hint of astonishment. Although there was no aura fluctuating on the fist, it gave him the feeling that the mountain was about to collapse and the earth was about to split. Alright, Qingshan, stop joking around. The Banyan Tree King's voice sounded in towering Sky City. Is there a need to be so timely? Li Qingshan shook his head. He knew that the Banyan Tree King appeared at this time because he wanted him to use his strength to introduce himself. He wanted to let all the demon kings and mutant kings know that the name Li Qingshan was not a joke. Li Qingshan's fist descended and patted the golden demon human king's shoulder. You owe me a punch. I'll be waiting for you to hit me anytime. At this moment, the doors opened one by one. The Banyan Tree King and Madame Teng walked out together. All the demon kings and mutant kings were stunned. Chapter 988. The Banyan Tree King's beard fell off, revealing his true appearance. He was not as old as he had been imagined. He only seemed to be in his 40s. His long, dark, green hair that originally tangled with his beard had been combed back neatly, with natural curls. A pair of long eyebrows reached his temples, making him seem extraordinarily handsome. Even with some wrinkles, he still gave off a mature charm. Why aren't you saying anything? The Banyan Tree King asked with a smile. He subconsciously reached out to touch his beard, only realizing it was gone when he touched thin air. His voice was still ancient and profound, but it gave off a completely different feeling. Li Qingshan broke into laughter. He was nowhere near the erudite old man in his impression. He was clearly a handsome middle-aged man. If it were not for his gentle, deep eyes, he basically would have suspected he was a different person. Only then did the kings return to their senses. They all bowed and congratulated him. Turbulent, chaotic auras immediately gathered around the banyan tree king. Only now did Li Qingshan deeply sense that this was a colossal group of demons and other folk. As the banyan tree king became the god of the mist province, they became even more united. Tree king, who are they? The silver snake glanced at Li Qingshan and the others. When he recalled just now, he still felt lingering fear. After becoming a demon king, it had already been many years since he experienced the terror of being on the verge of death. I'm indebted to this young friend Qingshan. The banyan tree king's answer was simple and clear, but it left the kings very surprised. Every single person here had been indebted to the banyan tree king. It had always been the banyan tree king who showed favors to others, so why had they been indebted to Li Qingshan? Being indebted to me is being indebted to me. You can throw that punch back at me at any time. I definitely won't fight back, said the golden essence human king. There's no need for that. It's just a joke. Li Qingshan smiled. So it was I who was rude to you. Please forgive me. Young Master Silver Snake immediately cupped his hands and apologized. Without waiting for Little N to respond, Madame Ting suddenly appeared in front of her and stuffed a golden fruit into her mouth. Thank you for saving my life. In a flash, he returned to the banyan tree king's side. However, he maintained a certain distance from the banyan tree king. He was no longer as close to him as before. Another life-saving grace. Under everyone's astonished gaze, Little N nodded and said, I'm ashamed to accept it. It would be impolite to refuse. At this moment, a streak of silver light shot through the sky. The Silver Dragon King flew over, hovering above the sea of trees. The King of Southern Yu led a group of great cultivators and drifted down, congratulating the banyan tree king. After exchanging a few pleasantries, he turned to Li Qingshan and said, I heard you were going north to the Dragon Province. I've come this time to congratulate you, as well as to see you off. The surroundings fell silent. Just what had Li Qingshan done to earn such high regard from both the banyan tree king and the King of Southern Yu? Only Yi Weiyang and Yi Duanhai, who had witnessed the battle in person, just now understood that this respect was not excessive at all. You're far too polite, Your Majesty. Li Qingshan smiled. You don't want me to return to the Green Province, right? The Green Province and the Mist Province were still in a state of war. With the King of Southern Yu acting so close to him, it was difficult to say how the King Chu Lai's estate would react. However, just like how one did not slap a smiling face, he could not blame him for being too polite. Not to mention, he had never planned on becoming involved in the war between the two provinces in the first place. Chu Lai King's thoughts were no longer important to him. If you can stay in the Mist Province, that would be for the best. I'm always waiting for the position of honored guest. The King of Southern Yu was amiable. Then I sure am flattered. Li Qingshan's voice carried a hint of mockery. There's no need for that. The King of Southern Yu smiled, completely ignoring him. The others were confused. They had never thought of that. It's quite late. Everyone, please get into character. The banyan tree king raised his hand. As a result, Li Qingshan stood beside the two kings who stood at the apex of the Mist Province and entered Towering City. A cultivation at the second heavenly tribulation just seemed rather strange. At the banquet, the King of Southern Yu suddenly pointed at a black mark on the banyan tree king's hand and asked, "What's this?" Li Qingshan immediately realized that this was originally a flaw in the Mist Province cauldron formed from the demon cauldron. As it seemed, becoming a god of the Mist Province came with a corresponding price. The banyan tree king gave a slight explanation, and the King of Southern Yu immediately said, "I'll wipe out the demon cauldron for you." How could the demon kings and other human kings just sit around? They all agreed, swearing to chase the demon folk out of the Mist Province. Only Madame Teng snorted and turned her head away, showing no respect to the Banyan Tree King at all. The situation became rather awkward. Li Qingshan understood. This banquet was not just a celebration. Instead, it was for the sake of unifying their thoughts and strength so that they could completely suppress the demon plague. He raised the cup in his hand. May the two of you sweep away the demons and return peace to the Mist Province. The greatest banquet in the history of the Mist Province only lasted for half a day before the King of Southern Yu bid farewell and left. The demon kings and other human kings all rushed off to various places, and Towering City fell silent once more. Under the setting sun, a smear of red light flickered between the canopy and the sea of trees. Li Qingshan stood up and was about to bid farewell. Looks like we still have a very long way to go. The Banyan Tree King said as he handed a fruit of wisdom that flickered with rainbow light to Li Qingshan. It seems different from the one last time. This fruit has fused with the fragments I eliminated from the Mist Province cauldron. It has some other effects, said the Banyan Tree King. I wonder if it'll taste good. The little phoenix gazed at the fruit of wisdom greedily. You have an innate legacy, so you don't need my little cleverness. The Banyan Tree King patted his head. Li Qingshan accepted it carefully. A fruit of wisdom like that was enough to change the fate of a cultivator. He looked at Little and beside him. Do you want to eat it? I heard you can only eat a single fruit of wisdom in your lifetime. I'd like to wait until you become a god of the 9 provinces before condensing one for me, senior. All right. If that day really does come, I'll definitely offer it up. The Banyan Tree King laughed aloud. If I have the opportunity, I'll definitely retrieve the other 9 cauldrons for you. Li Qingshan clasped his hands. Just let nature take its course. There's no need to force it. The Banyan Tree King nodded. Originally, this was something that even the 10 demon kings and lords of a province could not achieve, but the Banyan Tree King believed that as long as Li Qingshan continued to grow naturally, there would be a day when he could obtain the other 9 cauldrons with ease, even if it was the Dragon Province cauldron. When he first met Li Qingshan, he never thought it would be such a great fortuitous encounter. There's something else. You know Ru Xian as well, so please help me look after her, said Li Qingshan. You're a step too late. She's already left the territory of the Mist Province yesterday, returning to the Green Province, said the Banyan Tree King. What? Li Qingshan was surprised. He had not specially gone to bid farewell to Ru Xian because he wanted her to cultivate in peace in the south. He never thought she would beat him to it. I just happen to have something on my mind. My wife wants to visit the Green Province with you, so please take care of her. The Banyan Tree King raised his hand with a smile and pointed at Madame Teng beside him. Chapter 989. If I can't even see this, then I would have wasted the past 5,000 years. The Banyan Tree King smiled. So what if I can see it? Do you think I can't live without you? Madame Teng sneered. This is my fault. You should have gone out a long time ago. You would have realized that the world is so vast and not what you have seen in the past 5,000 years. I just happen to be the first tree you have met. It's not just a coincidence, it's fate. Fate? I am confident that few people in the 9 prefectures can compare to me in the Tao of divination, but I feel that fate is unpredictable and uncontrollable. It's fate. Madame Teng said stubbornly, it's fate that you want to kill me, and it's fate that I want to leave. There's no need for you to take care of me. I will walk my own path. As she spoke, Towering Sky City shook and a loud rumbling sound came from below. The sun vines that coiled around the great banyan tree began to curl up and finally turned into a curved golden light that entered Madame Teng's body. The sunflower on her head suddenly shone brightly like the blazing sun before slowly shrinking and disappearing. It wasn't that plants couldn't move, but it was more suitable to cultivate if they stayed in one place. After the sun vines became a spirit monster, they didn't have to be parasitized to survive. They just had to pay a price. After completing the transformation, Madame Teng said hatefully, "Go be the god of the 9 prefectures, damn old man." With that, she turned into a golden light and shot towards the north. The banyan tree king gazed into the distance until Madame Teng completely disappeared in the horizon. Just now, he closed his eyes gently. Li Qingshan opened his mouth, but he didn't know what to say. He patted the banyan tree king's shoulder. Thinking about it, it was already rare that he didn't take revenge against such a resolute betrayal, let alone forgive. The banyan tree king's image had been changed for nothing. "Please take care of me." The banyan tree king turned his head and sighed. "Don't worry." Li Qingshan felt as if the positions of the banyan tree king and Madame Teng had been reversed. Moreover, Madame Teng's strength could be said to be the strongest among the demon kings. She didn't need anyone to take care of her. "It's getting late. You should set off." Li Qingshan said, "Let's go back." He spread his phoenix wings and flew towards the north under the illumination of the setting sun. Little Ant and Little Phoenix followed closely behind. On the way, Li Qingshan said to Little Ant, "You guessed wrong this time. You really haven't forgiven me, right? Do you think the phrase, 'let nature take its course, don't force it,' was meant for you?" Little Ant looked to the north. "You mean?" Li Qingshan was stunned. "If my guess is correct, Madame Teng's trip to the north this time is most likely to find an opportunity to seize the Qingzhou cauldron." Little Ant looked back and smiled. "Does she still want to stop the Tree King from becoming a god?" Li Qingshan said in surprise. This seemed to be the only reasonable explanation, but it also seemed a little strange. Since the Tree King has already taken this step, he can no longer turn back. How can he be stopped? Little Ant shook his head slightly. "You mean she did it to help him?" "Of course. This can't be." Li Qingshan felt that this was too unbelievable. Originally, Madame Teng was the staunchest opponent of the Banyan Tree King becoming a god. After suffering a fatal blow, she suddenly became a supporter. She didn't hesitate to take a great risk to seize the Qingzhou cauldron. Since she still believes that it's fate. Little N's voice was faint. "Ha, what fate? I think she is blinded by lard." Li Qingshan smiled disapprovingly. "That's true." They headed north until they reached the border of the 2 prefectures. Li Qingshan said quietly, "Qingzhou, I am back." There was a small city surrounded by mountains. The 3 words, Qingyang City, were deeply engraved on the city walls. They had already become rather mottled from the erosion of wind and rain. Under the setting sun, they seemed rather bleak. A locust landed on the point above the word, city. Its emotionless compound eyes were reflected red by the setting sun. It paused for a moment before flapping its wings and taking off again, merging into the swarm of insects that filled the sky. "Sir, let's go. If we don't go now, it'll be too late." Frantic footsteps rang out everywhere in the government office. The advisor's call made everyone shiver. "What are you panicking for? It's just a few insects. Don't tell me they can eat us." Under the plaque hanging high above, a fat figure turned around and stared at the advisor with bulging eyes. He wore a set of large, red official robes. He was the district magistrate of Qingyang, Yidachuan. His hair and beard were white, and his face was covered in wrinkles. He already seemed rather old. However, having been an official for many years, he had developed a bearing of authority. He was not as miserable as when he first took office. "Sir, please stop putting on airs. Those locusts really can eat people." Ouch! A locust flew in from the swarm of insects outside and landed on the advisor's neck. He cried out and extended his hand in a hurry to catch it, but the locust crawled onto his face again. Smack! Yidachuan raised his fat hand and slapped the advisor across the face before patting him on the shoulder. He wiped his hand along the way. You idiot! How could I not have made arrangements? At this moment, a bell rang out from somewhere in the city. Yi Dachuan's face lit up. He wrapped the green veil he had prepared around his head and face and ordered loudly, "Go to the back and invite the madam and young miss. Don't worry about what you can't carry. We'll set off immediately." Several kilometers away, in the Iron Fist. The Iron Lion, Lu Hong, pulled back his fist and left behind a clear imprint of his fist on the metal bell before him. His hair and beard were all white, joining together. Although he was advanced in age, he seemed even more spirited than before. His first disciple, Wang Lei, praised behind him, "Master's martial arts have advanced again. It's all because of your junior brother's spiritual fruits." Lu Hong shook his head and glanced at his fist. The innate realm sure was wondrous, but unfortunately, this was as far as he could go. Junior brother is an important figure in the Clear River Prefecture. I heard that even our main sect master greets him when he sees him. Everything has been prepared. Once we reach the Clear River Prefecture, Master, you can spend your remaining years in peace. I still have a few more years to live. Looking at the situation in the world, who can spend their remaining years in peace? Just like what Wang Lei had said, a long group of people were already waiting outside. All of their heads were covered in gauze, and their eyes were covered too. Even their ears were plugged up to prevent the locusts from burrowing in. When Lu Hong emerged from the Iron Fist, the group fell silent. Despite Wang Lei's objections, Lu Hong insisted on riding at the front of the group, traveling out of the city slowly. They stopped at the entrance of the government office, and Yi Dachuan merged with them with his family and guards, making the group grow larger and larger. They advanced arduously through the swarming locusts. Lu Hong raised his head and looked around. He saw the dense swarm of locusts. The surrounding mountains had all become barren, let alone the fields and gardens. They had all become food for the locusts. The famine in the city had already lasted for a very long time. When he passed by an alleyway, he saw a few stray dogs gnawing on a starving corpse. He had already grown sick of this sight a long time ago. Suddenly, he began to miss the times of the past. Even when the Jianghu was filled with many dangers and battles to the death, it had never been so gloomy. The group's advance led to an uproar in the city. The wealthy families who had endured the famine until now all brought their most precious belongings with them. Even if they could still last for a very long time with the surplus of food in their homes, their minds would collapse first. This was not a regular plague of locusts. The rumor of locusts eating people had already spread for a very long time before the first locust arrived. No one knew when the insects that ate grass would become the legendary man-eating monsters. And, in the past few days in the city, many people had reported seeing a huge locust that specially hunted people at night, so their fear became heavier and heavier. Everyone believed that they would only be truly safe in Clear River City, and Lu Hong and Yi Dachuan's choices gave them even more confidence. "Master, what do we do?" Wang Lei urged his horse to travel with Lu Hong as he asked with a frown. "They're all from the same village. Let them follow us. Your junior brother has his own plans," Lu Hong said. At the end of the day, there were only a few people who could keep up with the group. The poor people who only had a pair of legs and were half dead from hunger were unable to keep up. However, this gave them an opportunity. They could rely on the food that the fleeing wealthy families had left behind to last a little longer. The group passed through the city gates in a grandiose manner, setting off towards the distant Clear River City. Lu Hong suddenly felt threatened. He looked back at the sky, but he was unable to see anything. "Master, what's wrong?" "Nothing. Let's hurry to Sichuan village." Unbeknownst to Lu Hong, a locust was currently watching him from within the swarm of locusts. This locust seemed no different from regular locusts, but it did not go around eating like its own kind. Instead, it hovered in the air quietly, overlooking the entire Qingyang city. Faint demon qi revolved around it. Actually, Qingyang City was located in a remote location, and it was located on the outskirts of the boundless mountains, so it had not become the soaring Locust King's target. The locust plague had only reached here very late. Within the locust plague of Qingyang City, there was only a single, weak clone that guided and controlled the entire swarm of locusts. Its objective was to plant enough eggs and provide a source of soldiers for the entire plague of locusts. At the same time, it would create a great famine and wipe out the source of soldiers of the humans. In terms of strength, this clone was not even the opponent of the innate master, Lu Hong. It would probably struggle to deal with the master of the Iron Fist, Wang Lei. Myriad clones was an extremely terrifying innate ability, but there were many prerequisites for it. Moreover, with a tremendous advantage in numbers, it was very difficult to guarantee the quality. If it were like Li Qingshan's Water Mirror's image, where every clone possessed 30% of the original's battle prowess, the soaring Locust King would have been invincible a long time ago. Why would it still need to hide its original body? After the group had traveled far away from the city, the locust wrapped in faint demon chi suddenly swelled up. It was the size of a calf, and it swooped down with a flap of its wings. Below, a group of people were currently breaking down the door in an attempt to barge into the granary left behind by a wealthy family. A wave of madness swept over them, and they all turned around. They cried out in fright, "Giant locust!" The giant locust swept through the crowd in an arc before rushing back into the sky. It carried a skinny human in its 6 legs as its cries reached the sky. With a bite from its sharp mouth, the cries immediately vanished, turning into slurping and chewing sounds. Even the bones were chewed and swallowed. By the time it had swallowed everything, the giant locust had grown even larger. Chapter 990. The group traversed through the mountains, but they did not see any greenery along the way. The sound of locusts flapping their wings was omnipresent. Coupled with the fear of the unknown ahead, it made them restless and uneasy. Arguments would erupt from time to time, or even swords would be thrown at one another. Lu Hong could not walk at the front anymore. He rode his horse to the front and back of the group, using his dignity as an innate master to intimidate everyone. They arrived before a narrow valley. Lu Hong suddenly stopped his horse and waved his hand for the group to stop. He said loudly, "Friend, where are you from up ahead? Don't sneak around. Come out and meet me." Using his innate true chi, his voice reverberated through the valley. "Ha, and I was wondering who it was. So it's the Iron Lion. Do you still recognize me?" A large man climbed up a huge rock and gazed at the group below. His face was sallow like he was ill, but his eyes shone brightly. He held a large bow in his hand. Many figures stood up on the 2 sides of the valley with a rustle, all holding bows and arrows. Huang Binggu. Lu Hong's eyes narrowed. Although he had become an innate master through a pile of spiritual fruits, he could tell that Huang Binggu had already reached the 7th layer, having split open his sea of qi. He had surpassed the cultivation of the masters of the Jianghu and become a true qi practitioner. He clasped his hands. "Manor Lord Huang, it really has been a while. I heard you've been traveling around, but I wonder when you've returned to the mountains and started doing business like this. I've made a fool of myself in front of Schoolmaster Lu. Demons run amok right now, and the mountains are no longer a paradise. All I can do is go to the Clear River Prefecture to make a living, but I don't have enough food. There's nothing I can do." Huang Binggu sighed. The locust plague mainly spread through populated areas. It would not reach the depths of the mountains or forests. The Drawn Rains village relied on hunting for a living. They did not rely on farming to survive, so they were relatively free in the beginning. However, in recent years, the demons lurking in the depths of the boundless mountains gradually expanded their range of activity. A few months ago, demonic beasts began intruding into the village. The tall wooden walls might have been able to stop soldiers, but they were unable to stop the demonic beasts that moved like the wind. In just a few days, people would lose their lives. The demonic beast basically treated the Drawn Reins village as a sheep pen, able to come and catch a few people and eat them at any time. Drawn Reins village had no choice but to invite Huang Binggu back. They had spent a great deal of effort to kill the demon beast, but nearly 100 people from Drawn Reins village had died. However, if it was a demon that had come, it was uncertain who had died. Huang Binggu had no choice but to move the entire village, but the Drawn Reins village did not have that much food in reserve, which was why this happened. Huang Binggu could casually kill a Qi practitioner at the first layer of Qi practitioner, but Lu Hong was a little troublesome. It was not that he was afraid of the Iron Fist, but that the old man had a good disciple, the current head of the agricultural family, Li Long, sect leader Lu, take the Iron Fist disciples and leave first. Although I don't want to do this, I can't just watch my children starve to death. The moment Huang Binggu said this, the team behind him went into a panic. Some of them loudly begged for Lu Hong's protection, while others scolded Huang Binggu. With a swoosh, an arrow was shot out of nowhere. The person who was cursing was hit and fell to the ground. The crowd was in an uproar. Murder! What are you howling for? All of you shut up! Lu Hong bellowed out furiously. With the prestige he had accumulated in Qingyang City over all these years, the group immediately quietened down. He did not pity the person who had been shot to death at all. How could a mighty Qi practitioner be cursed just like that? Even second or third-rate figures of the Jianghu would kill someone with a blade. Brother Huang, why don't we go to the Clear River Prefecture together? I'll deal with the matter of food. It'll be a little safer on the way too. Lu Hong thought about it. The disciples of the Iron Fist did not grow up from the ground. They had many connections with the wealthy clans behind them. If he allowed Huang Binggu to plunder them as he pleased, their morale would immediately disperse. However, if he stubbornly refused, Huang Binggu was no pushover either. If he made up his mind and decided to eliminate the source of trouble, no one would be able to stop him here. Master, we didn't bring that much food with us either, Wang Lei said softly. Collect all the food and redistribute it according to the number of people. If you don't want to, then piss off. Lu Hong yelled. Thank you, old sect master Lu. Huang Binggu clasped his hands, and the hunters of the Drawn Reins village descended from the two sides of the valley. Then, he ordered, take out our stored food too and let old sect master Lu distribute it. The hunters handed over their dried meat and other food silently. All of them were expressionless, but they gave off a sense of ruthlessness that could erupt at any time. The painful experiences of the past few months had suppressed and twisted their personalities. Let alone stealing some food, they would even eat people without hesitation. Even the disciples of the Iron Fist who collected the food were cautious when they approached them, let alone the others. None of them were bold enough to break away from the group, handing over their stored food obediently. The group set off once again, passing through a few more mountains before finally arriving at a mountain pass. Vast plains appeared before them, but not a single stalk of rice was to be seen. There was only endless barren land. Perhaps because it was too barren, there were not many locusts flying about. The group advanced silently. The villages and towns along the way were all abandoned. There was no sign of human activity at all. Lu Hong took the lead. The group traveled day and night, hurrying towards the town of Sichuan. We'll rest for a while. Lu Hong ordered. It was noon right now, and the sun was blazing like fire. Everyone was drenched in sweat, utterly exhausted. They used this opportunity to rest. The town of Sichuan is already close. Once we get there, we'll be able to follow the river and reach the prefectural city of Clear River. There's no need to walk anymore. Wang Lei boosted their morale loudly. Looks like old sect master Lu has already prepared a boat. I wonder if it'll be enough. Huang Binggu probed. Even the largest boat could not fit so many people. It's all my disciples' arrangements. I don't know if it'll be enough. I'll probably have to squeeze. Lu Hong weighed his words. As long as there's a boat, squeezing is fine. Huang Bingu smiled. It was not like he would be the one being squeezed out. Right when he wanted to ask a few more questions, his expression suddenly changed. He picked up the great bow on his back, picked up an arrow, and knocked it on the string. He looked around. What's wrong? Lu Hong asked. There's demon qi. Huang Bingu glanced around. Suddenly, he saw a green figure emerge from the earth from the corner of his eye, shooting into the body of a burly man. The burly man let out a miserable shriek, rolling around on the ground. He immediately bled to death from his facial orifices. Huang Bingu's fingers loosened, and the arrow shot through the air, entering the corpse of the burly man and exploding violently. Within the rain of flesh and blood, the green figure shot up again. Blood blossomed from the head of an Iron Fist disciple, and a hole appeared. He collapsed before he could even let out a shriek. A Qi demon. Only now did Huang Bingu see the green figure's true appearance. It was a locust larva. It was emerald green and only the size of a pinky. It could not fly, so it was commonly known as a Qi bug. However, the demon Qi gathered by this Qi bug was extremely startling, reaching the level of demons. Who knew how many people it had eaten? He thought, this place is so barren that even ordinary locusts can't survive here. How can there be a Qi demon here? It doesn't seem like a chance encounter, but more like it's here to kill us. Before Lu Hong could even see the appearance of the Qi demon clearly, miserable shrieks rang out from the crowd. In the end, almost everyone was letting out horrifying screams, as if their minds were being controlled by an invisible monster. Even he felt a little flustered, and only after touching the talismans in his bosom did he manage to calm himself down. He asked Huang Bingu beside him, Brother Huang, what do we do? Huang Bingu leaped over, his body reaching the highest point. His pupils narrowed into two as he stared at the location of the demon Qi. Over a dozen arrows rained down like a torrential rain, turning into balls of exploding flames and blasting a corpse into smithereens. Lu Hong asked, How is it? Did you kill it? It burrowed back into the earth. Perhaps it was injured, perhaps it wasn't. Huang Bingu shook his head, his expression abnormally solemn. That Qi demon seemed to have seen through his thoughts, burrowing back into the earth at the first moment instead of shooting at the next victim. Otherwise, there really would have been a chance to kill it. Furthermore, it maintained such a tiny body size, as if it was specifically targeting him. Then what do we do? There's nothing we can do, Huang Bingu said. No matter how good his archery was, it was impossible for him to pierce through the earth and hit that Qi demon. Lu Hong's expression changed. A demonic beast hiding in the earth, ready to pounce at any moment, was practically a nightmare. Looks like we don't have to worry about not having enough boats. Huang Bingu made a joke, but even he himself could not laugh. In terms of strength, that Qi demon was at most equivalent to a human at the 4th or 5th layer of Qi practitioner. It could only be considered a demonic beast, not a demon. However, he did not have the slightest confidence that he could defeat it, because behind this Qi demon was a great demon king that had wreaked havoc in the entire Green Province. Amidst its madness, there was also a deep sense of cunning and prudence. Be it in terms of combat skills or experience, it was not something an ordinary demonic beast could compare to. At most, he could serve as a deterrent, allowing the Qi demon to feast on the regular people in the distance. Let's go. Lu Hong made up his mind as well, passing down the order. Before he had even finished speaking, another howl rang out. A person at the very end of the group collapsed on the ground. Green bulges protruded from beneath his skin, but it did not directly kill him. It was as if it was purposefully increasing his pain. The howl was extremely tragic, enough to make people's scalps tingle. The crowd immediately surged forward like a ruckus. Twisted cries filled the air, filled with fear and regret. They regretted leaving Qingyang City in such a hurry, but they had no idea that Qingyang City had already become a slaughterhouse for locusts right now, rapidly transforming into demonic beasts. Huang Binggu's bow was knocked as well, but after some thought, he lowered his bow again. He gathered the hunters of the Drawn Rains village and sped up towards the lower river village. He could continue to stop the Qi demon from eating, but he would definitely be unable to endure it first. As a result, he was better off letting the Qi demon eat a little longer, which would buy him some time. However, he also understood that this was just quenching his thirst with poison, as the Qi demon's strength would increase with every person it ate. If it completely turned into an adult insect, even he would be in danger of being eaten. Old brother Lu, I hope that school leader Li has arranged for reinforcements at the ferry crossing, or we're all going to lose our lives to the mouths of the insects. It's just death. Lu Hong's face darkened with rage. Sect Master Lu, Manor Lord Huang, save me. Lu Hong looked back and saw a group of people fighting over Yi Dachuan's carriage. As a result, he turned his horse around and smashed ahead with a punch. All of you piss off. As they fled, the group split into two. Those without horses and who did not practice martial arts were left behind, becoming food for the Qi demon. Their howls gradually faded away, completely swallowed up by the sandstorm. They traveled like this until dusk. Even the fine horse Lu Hong sat on began foaming at the mouth. Even though the disciples of the Iron Fist sect and the hunters of the Drawn Rains village were skilled in martial arts, they were utterly exhausted. They could not help but stop to rest and eat something. Thank you, old hero Lu. Once we reach Clear River City, I'll definitely reward you handsomely. If I had known this earlier, I wouldn't have left Qingyang City. No, I shouldn't have returned to Qingyang City. When Jiaping City was destroyed back then, I should have obediently retired to the prefectural city. Only then did Yi Dachuan get off the carriage in time to thank him. His chubby face was pale, completely drained of blood. In the past, when Jiaping City was destroyed by the rock demon, he had nowhere to go as the district magistrate, and he was deeply afraid of the strength of the demons. As a result, he got his sister to whisper to the prefectural magistrate of Clear River, Lu Changqing, and he was transferred back to Qingyang City as the district magistrate. He never thought he would still be unable to escape in the end. There's no need to be so polite, sir. Lu Hong nodded slightly. Wang Lei patted his chest. As long as I still have a breath left, I'll definitely make it to Clear River City safely, sir. Yi Dachuan's sister was the beloved concubine of the prefectural magistrate of Clear River, Lu Changqing. Although she was old and frail now, she had given birth to a son and a daughter for Lu Changqing, so her status had instead become even more stable. Yi Dachuan had mentioned this matter for many years. Wang Lei could not forget it even if he wanted to. He knew his relationship with Li Long was not exactly harmonious, so it was good to have an additional path. Thank you, Sect Master Wang. Yi Dachuan thanked WNG Lei again, but he didn't really trust WNG Lei's guarantee. Sect Master WNG already had a hard time protecting himself when the leprechaun attacked, let alone protecting Yi Dachuan. Yi Dachuan suddenly thought of someone. Sigh, if Qing Shan was here, he wouldn't be in such a difficult situation. Sir Yi, you're overthinking it. Do you still treat him as your constable? Huang Binggu smiled. If Li Qingshan were here, a measly demon would be nothing. I heard from Li Long that he's the White Hawk commander of the South Sea Commandery of the Mist Province right now. He occupies a place called Savage Mountain, and he's known as the King of Savages. Even the King of Southern Yu shows some respect when he sees him, said Lu Hong. Really? Huang Binggu was filled with disbelief. Only after embarking on the path of cultivation did he truly understand just how lofty an existence the lord of a province was. I found that rather hard to believe, but that disciple of mine would never lie. I've even punched him several dozen times in the past. Time sure passes quickly. Yi Dachuan sighed. Are you talking about Li Qingshan? A shrill voice drifted over with the wind. Who else could it be? Yi Dachuan said, only to see Huang Binggu's expression change drastically. Lu Hong also raised his fist, gazing at the barren slope nearby cautiously. By now, the sun had already sunk below the horizon. Only the west was dyed red, and a few cold stars lit up in the sky. On the barren slope, a withered tree extended its branches like a huge, withered hand, as if it wanted to grab a star. A tiny caterpillar lay on the branch of the withered tree. The shrill voice originated from its mouth. We've actually only noticed it when we're so close. The situation doesn't look good. Huang Binggu sharply noticed that a smear of grayish-yellow had appeared on the caterpillar. It was rapidly transforming into an adult. Once it completely transformed, it would be the end of everyone. Chapter 991. A great demon king that had wreaked havoc in the Green Province and eaten countless people was actually connected to Li Qingshan. Lu Hong and Huang Binggu glanced at one another. They were both in disbelief. We've all been old friends of Qingshan for several decades. You should be thanking him for sparing our lives. Yi Dachuan said loudly. Of course. A friend of a friend is a friend. If you had told me earlier, why would I want to eat you? The monster Yao flapped its wings and flew off the branch, disappearing into the desolate slope. Fantastic. Yi Dachuan sat on the ground, while the others all let out sighs of relief. Their faces were filled with joy from escaping death. Brother Huang, what do you think? Lu Hong frowned. He felt like the monster Yao had left far too easily. That's hard to say. We're done resting, so let's hurry up. Huang Binggu did not want to entrust the lives of the entire village to the loyalty of a demon. I think so too. Lu Hong nodded before giving the order to set off. Sect Master Lu, since the demons have already retreated, why are you in such a hurry? Even the horses can't take it if you keep going like this. Some people were unwilling to leave. After running for an entire afternoon, even riding a horse left them exhausted. As soon as they relaxed, they felt like the ground of the summer night was as comfortable as a soft bed. If you want to stay, then stay. Lu Hong tossed that down coldly and mounted his horse. He used true qi to regulate the horse's breathing along the way, so the horse retained some vigor. Now, it raised its hooves and galloped off into the distance. Everyone could only prop themselves up and follow him. Some people simply did not want to move anymore or could not move anymore after the threat of death was gone, so they stayed behind. They considered whether they should return to Qingyang City or not. On the other hand, the hunters of the Drawn Reins village traversed the mountains all year round. Coupled with the care of a seventh-layer qi practitioner like Huang Binggu, they managed to endure it with some difficulty. Old Manor Lord, I really can't move anymore. You should go. A 12 or 13-year-old young man said to Huang Binggu. He had only practiced martial arts for a short period of time, so his inner force was still extremely weak. Although he had tempered his muscles and bones, he could not endure such a rapid march. Cut the nonsense. Huang Binggu stretched out his hand and patted the youth's back. A wave of true qi flowed in, and the youth's spirit was immediately lifted. Thank you, Villa Master. Night fell, and the wilderness was dotted with stars. The team moved forward with difficulty, and from time to time, some people fell behind. They stopped a few more times in the middle, but the demon wolf did not chase after them again. It seemed like it really wanted to let them live. Brother Huang, do you want to slow down? Lu Hong asked. Many of the disciples of Iron Fist couldn't keep up. He didn't have enough innate qi to take care of them. Let's continue walking. Something doesn't feel right. Huang Binggu turned around and stared into the darkness. The ominous feeling in his heart grew stronger and stronger. More than 10 miles away, a broken carriage had fallen to the side of the road. A horse was foaming at the mouth and dying. Two people were arguing. The woman criticized the man loudly. I told you we shouldn't have left Qingyang City. Now that we've ended up like this, What do you think we should do? What should we do? What should I do? You only know how to ask. The man was very irritable as well. They did not have enough food on hand to return to Qingyang City at all. Even if they killed the horse for its meat, it would rot very quickly in a summer like this. If they continued towards the village of Lower River, Lu Hong and the others would have probably gone down the river long ago by the time they arrived. Why would they wait for them? I must have been blind to marry a piece of trash like you. Even trash has his uses. A shrill voice spoke up for the man. The man felt like the voice was right next to his ear. Using the faint moonlight, the woman saw a tiny demon wolf on the man's shoulder. It opened its mouth and was about to shriek. The demon wolf flapped its wings gently and produced a gust of cold wind. The woman's shriek came to a halt, and a bloody gash appeared on her neck. Her head rolled off. Spare me. I'm also Li Qingshan's friend. Don't kill me. The man said with a trembling voice. His lower body felt wet and hot. All right, I know you're not, so I'll give you a quick death. The demon Meng's body rapidly grew to the size of a horse carriage, its compound eyes flashed with green light, its ferocious mouth split into a few pieces, swallowing half of the man's body in one bite and chewing. So delicious. So delicious. It's even more delicious than demon folk no matter how I eat it. As it swallowed mouthful after mouthful, it gradually transformed from a demon wolf to a locust. In Qingyang City, the sound of the huge locust flapping its wings rang through the entire city. Terrifying shadows patrolled every street and alleyway, constantly hunting for food. Its demon qi grew steadily. When it reached midnight, the huge locust reluctantly abandoned all its food. It sealed up the 2 city gates first before flapping its wings and flying towards the village of Lower River. When it heard the name, Li Qingshan, it made up its mind. All of these people had to die. By dawn, the group had arrived at the village of Lower River. The town that had once prospered because of the ferry had now been completely abandoned as well. Ruins littered the place. We're finally here. Wang Lei exhaled deeply and looked around. Only a 10th or 20 of the people who had left Qingyang City with him remained. His heart was rather heavy. Don't stop. The ferry is right up ahead. Once you board the ship, you'll be safe. Lu Hong boosted their morale loudly. A strange hum rang out from afar. A yellow speck rapidly drew closer and larger. A huge locust with surging demon qi flew over. God damn it. Let's go. Huang Binggu cursed. He leapt onto a restaurant on the side of the road and shot an arrow. The flying locust dodged the arrow with a slight tilt. It said hoarsely, "My good friends, don't run. Let me have a taste of your flesh and blood." Twang! 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 The bowstring thrummed as Huang Binggu shot arrow after arrow, unleashing his ultimate technique of rapid fire. Too slow. Too slow. The flying locust's colossal body turned into arcs, dodging every single arrow gracefully. It did not slow down at all. Even if it could not dodge, it would knock the arrows aside with a gentle sweep of its front foot. Huang Binggu's face sank. He had been on the move for an entire night, constantly channeling true qi to his clansmen. His condition was very horrible as well. He was not the opponent of this fully fed locust demon at all. If he wanted to emerge victorious, he had to take the risk. A fierce gust of wind blew over. Its vicious mouth opened, biting towards his head. A gleam of light flashed through Huang Binggu's eyes. This was the opportunity he had been waiting for. He immediately drew his bow like a crescent moon. Rings of true qi coiled around the arrow, ready to shoot. Behind you. There's another one. Lu Hong's voice twisted as he warned loudly. All of Huang Binggu's hairs stood on end. Demon qi assaulted him from behind, but it was already too late for him to dodge. He felt a stabbing pain from his back, and a flying locust the size of a thumb pierced through his chest. There were still a few smears of emerald green on its body. It was the monster that had pursued them. There are actually 2 of them. My life is over. However, the giant flying locust in front of him did not bite him. Instead, it turned around and swept past him. Blood splattered everywhere, and a severed arm flew high into the air. Don't be hasty, a good friend should be tasted slowly. With a bang, Huang Binggu fell from the roof. He saw the giant flying locust pouncing towards the crowd again. Its buzzing wings were like blades. More than 10 people were running on the street when they were suddenly torn apart. Among them were hunters from the Drawn Reins village, as well as disciples of Iron Fist. It's over. Huang Binggu closed his eyes in despair. Against such an enemy, even if there was only one, it would be extremely difficult to win, let alone 2. The flying locust pounced over, and Lu Hong knew that there was no way to escape. He pushed Wang Lei, who was beside him, away, and straightened his body. He slapped a Vajra strength talisman on his body, and waves of golden light surged from his body, transforming into the illusion of a Vajra. With a sudden roar, he punched out with both his fists, using the move, Iron Horse splitting the mane, towards the flying locust. With a loud bang, the small flying locust that the monster had transformed into, like a hidden weapon, fiercely smashed into Lu Hong's chest. The illusion of a Vajra immediately caved in, and the golden light flickered and dimmed. Lu Hong's feet left the ground, and he flew backwards. Meanwhile, the giant flying locust used its front legs to easily pierce through Lu Hong's shoulder, crippling all of his ability to resist. The 2 flying locusts, one big and one small, cooperated flawlessly. It could no longer be described with the word tacit understanding. Under the control of a great demon king, even if one's strength was above theirs, they might not necessarily be able to win. Just like how it dealt with Huang Binggu, the flying locust did not immediately kill Lu Hong. The small flying locust continued to slaughter the fleeing mortals, while the giant flying locust flapped its wings and flew high into the sky, its compound eyes searching everywhere. Where's the other good friend? Yi Dachuan drove the carriage down to the ferry, and from time to time, he would look back. When he saw the fate of Huang Binggu and Lu Hong, he was so scared that his soul left his body. He desperately waved his whip, "Go! Go!" Found him. The flying locust flapped its wings, creating a gust of wind. It suddenly appeared beside Yi Dachuan and moved alongside the carriage. Its compound eyes stared at him and said, "Good friend, I still haven't thanked you properly." "No. No need." Yi Dachuan stammered. "That's not up to you." The flying locust laughed sinisterly. Just as it was about to capture Yi Dachuan and torture him together with Huang Binggu and Lu Hong, a sword chi suddenly whistled over. The flying locust hurriedly dodged, but one of its antennae was still cut off. It crashed head-first into a residential building by the side of the road, causing it to collapse with a loud bang, smoke and dust flying everywhere. Yi Dachuan saw a red-clothed man holding a large sword lightly step on the shaft of the carriage, and in a flash, he swung his sword towards the collapsed residential building. With a whoosh, the small flying locust shot towards the red-clothed man's head. The red-clothed man lowered his sword and slashed to the side, forcing the small flying locust to retreat. With a loud bang, the broken bricks and tiles flew everywhere. The giant flying locust suddenly pounced out, its sharp mouth biting towards the red-clothed man. The man struck out with his palm. He wore a fiery red glove on the hand that did not hold the sword, and with a flash of red runes, it immediately transformed into a giant burning palm of flames, slapping the flying locust away. Scarlet Eagle Guard. 10th Layer Chi Practitioner. Huang Binggu was overjoyed. He leapt up from the ground, picked up his severed arm, and held it in his mouth. Holding a long arrow that flickered with spiritual light, he charged forward. The Scarlet Eagle Guard had already reached the peak of Chi practitioners. He had opened all the meridians in his body, and with a palm and a sword, he was able to suppress the two flying locusts, one large and one small. With Huang Binggu watching from the side, the flying locust was pushed back again and again, finally fleeing in two different directions. Kiki, another good friend, come and kill me. The Scarlet Eagle guard wanted to pursue, but when he saw the corpses all over the ground, he stopped. No matter which side he chose to pursue, he might be able to succeed in the end, but everyone here would have to die with him. Thank you, fellow Taoist, for saving me, Huang Binggu said. Wang Lei also came forward to express his thanks while supporting Lu Hong. Chapter 992. Don't tell me you're the former lord of the Proud Sword Manor. I've heard a lot about you. Lu Hong was surprised. In the past, the Proud Sword Manor possessed some renown in the Jianghu, but it was rumored that the lord had vanished afterwards, and the Proud Sword Manor declined. He never thought it would become such a powerful qi practitioner. That was a very long time ago. I never thought someone would still remember it. Yu Shuquang laughed aloud as his full beard trembled. Please wait a moment. We can't leave these corpses for that wretched demon. He waved his right hand and true qi surged, gathering the corpses into a pile. They were still alive just a moment ago, yet they had been reduced to such a state. The bloody sight made Lu Hong feel rather nauseous. A ball of fire flew out from Yu Shuquang's hand and landed on the pile of corpses. They were reduced to ashes in the blink of an eye. Wang Lei suddenly burst into tears. As it turned out, he had brought his entire family with him when he came to the Clear River Prefecture. Originally, he had taken care of his family, and they had managed to make it here after so much difficulty. In the end, they all died to the attacks of the locusts. If Lu Hong had not pushed him away, he would have been a dead man too. Lu Hong let out a long sigh. He could not help but tear up too. Yu Shuquang had already grown accustomed to this. Ever since the locust plague, who knew how many people had died to the insects? It was already quite rare for their corpses to be left behind for cremation. This place has already been reduced to a wasteland since a year ago. Even regular locusts are rare, yet 2 locusts demons have actually appeared. How strange. The wretched demon seems to recognize Li Qingshan. Huang Binggu hesitated before describing how he had conversed with the Gu demon. Li Qingshan. Yu Shuquang was taken aback. His path of cultivation had a lot to do with Li Qingshan. He said seriously, I know a thing or two about this. The Soaring Locust King was originally suppressed in the Demon Suppression Hall of the Chan Monastery of Devanaga. Afterwards, it bewitched an eminent monk and escaped somehow. I've never heard that it's connected to Li Qingshan. Based on the current situation, I'm afraid it's not gratitude, but enmity. This is troublesome. Huang Binggu's expression darkened. Based on the speed at which the locust demon was growing, it was more than enough to deal with them. Now that it had summoned another locust demon, it was clear that it was determined to capture them. Moreover, it was not in a hurry to kill them. Instead, it wanted to keep them alive to slowly torture them. No matter how he looked at it, the locust demon's hatred for them ran deep. It did not feel good to be targeted by a demon king. Alright, let's get on the boat first. Yu Shuquang led the lucky survivors to the ferry crossing. Sure enough, there was a dragon ship waiting there. It could accommodate 200 or 300 people, but less than a tenth of the people had boarded right now. As the sun rose in the east, the dragon boat set sail and went downstream. Yu Shuquang leaned on his sword as he stood on the deck. His scarlet clothes ruffled in the wind as the scenery on the 2 banks rapidly receded. Fellow Taoist Yu, is there anyone else to help? Huang Binggu walked out of the cabin, his severed arm already reattached. Isn't having me enough? Yu Shuquang laughed. That's not what I meant, Huang Binggu said in a hurry. I'm just joking. There's no need to be so nervous. I've also been considering whether I should ask for reinforcements or not. For the sake of the locust plague right now, no cultivator can afford to be idle. The higher one's cultivation is, the more trouble there will be. Otherwise, school leader Li would not have sent me here. He would have come personally. I understand that. However, if the soaring locust king sends even more powerful locusts, then the entire ship will be in danger of dying. Yu Shuquang nodded. He touched the scarlet bronze tablet on his waist and secretly made up his mind. Is your arm fine? It's fine now, but I won't be able to use a bow for a very long time. Hopefully, it's not for the rest of my life. When we get to the prefectural city, we can ask a disciple of the School of Medicine to take a look. There won't be any residual effects. The boat moved like the wind, covering a great distance in a single day. When they passed by Jiaping City, Yidachuan came out to take a look before returning to the cabin. When the moon rose into the sky, the fragrance of flowers drifted over with the wind. Yu Shuquang's face lit up. He clasped his hands. Greetings, Commander Hua. Dispense with the formalities. A beautiful figure landed gracefully on the front of the boat. She asked gently, you said the soaring locust king is attacking you because you know Li Qingshan? Yes. Yu Shuquang also found this reason to be rather forced, nor did he expect Commander Hua to rush over immediately. In the cabin, Huang Binggu and Lu Hong had been tense the entire time. They immediately rushed over when they heard the disturbance. All they saw was Yu Shuquang reporting to a woman politely. The faint fragrance of flowers lingered in the air. Even the wind from the river failed to disperse it. The woman's facial features were picturesque, her figure graceful, and her bearing elegant. She seemed like a flower fairy that had descended, but she possessed a natural sense of dignity. She wore the uniform of a Scarlet Hawk commander. The woman glanced past them. Huang Binggu and Lu Hong both lowered their heads and bowed. They were both relieved, feeling like their lives were finally secured. She asked, you're both from Qingyang City. Do you know Li Qingshan? Lu Hong and Huang Binggu both mentioned their connections with Li Qingshan. Then what a coincidence today. The woman smiled. She was extremely beautiful. Suddenly, she cast her gaze towards the depths of the night sky, and a golden flower bloomed between her fingers. Suddenly, it shot out a thin, golden streak of light, disappearing in a flash. A locust turned into the size of a regular locust and flew through the air, tailing behind the boat from afar. They were simply too far away, such that even Yu Shuquang failed to discover them. However, it was exactly because of this that he only focused on the tiny boat that he overlooked Commander Hua's arrival. Suddenly, there was a flash of golden light. Before he could even respond, he was pierced, falling out of the sky. Only then did Yu Shuquang and the others realize that they had been tailed the entire time. They all felt lingering fear. Fortunately, they had not called for reinforcements earlier, or they really would have died a horrible death if the even stronger locust attacked. Now, we'll see just how deep the soaring locust king's hatred runs. Commander Hua said. Although the soaring locust king had many clones, only a few could threaten her, and she was constantly being attacked from all sides. It was not necessarily necessary for her to muster such a large force out of hatred. As the river flowed, her emotions fluctuated slightly. She gazed at the bright moon and thought, Big Brother Li, are you all right? They did not come across any more danger during the rest of the journey. The boat approached Clear River City smoothly. Everyone arrived on the deck. The city was brightly lit under the night sky, reflected in the water of the Clear River. The hustle and bustle carried over with the night wind, displaying a long-awaited liveliness. Finally, it was no longer a desolate sight, which roused everyone's spirits. Before Yu Shuquang and the others could celebrate, Commander Hua suddenly looked back. All they saw was a black cloud rising up from the horizon. It was a cloud composed of millions of locusts. There were countless clones of the soaring locust king with demon chi as well. They lunged towards the boat and Clear River City with an aura that could devour everything. This was the true plague of locusts. Before this devastating disaster, Yu Shuquang and the others all changed in shock. Alarm bells rang out in the prefectural city of Clear River, ringing in everyone's hearts. What heavy demon chi up ahead? Chapter 993. After Li Qingshan arrived in the Green Province, he did not rush to the Clear River Prefecture immediately. Instead, he searched for Ru Xian's whereabouts first. He planned on persuading her to return to the south. He even specially got Little N to divine for this. When he found Ru Xian after quite a bit of effort, she was currently strolling through a desolate village alone, her hands behind her back in thought. She completely ignored Li Qingshan, who descended from above. "Hey, what are you doing here?" Only when Li Qingshan called out to her did she turn around. "What's it got to do with you? Why aren't you cultivating properly in the south? Why have you returned to the Green Province?" Li Qingshan asked. "I've already told you. What's it got to do with you? Don't tell me you can't bear to part with me." Li Qingshan sniggered and walked over. "I knew it. Someone's delusional again." Ru Xian shook her head helplessly. "Then I don't understand. The Green Province isn't a good place right now, let alone your dwelling in the Chain Mountains. It can't be compared to the myriad poison cult either. It's greatly detrimental to cultivation. I'd advise you to return to the Mist Province." Li Qingshan cut right to the chase. "Then why do you want to return to the Green Province?" Ru Xian answered with a question. "Don't you know? There's obviously some unresolved grievances. It's the same for me. My master is still in the Clear River Prefecture." Ru Xian thought of the taciturn, dark-skinned old man. If it were not for him, she would have died in the jungle of the Mist Province a long time ago. Although they did not seem close to outsiders, it would not be an exaggeration to describe them as father and daughter. After several decades of tireless guidance, the two words, Ru Xian, were the greatest hope he had for her. However, she was unable to let go of her hatred, which was why she insisted on heading south to the Mist Province. However, the outcome was not too bad. After settling this grievance, it was time for her to return the favor. As a result, she returned to the Green Province resolutely. As for whether it was because of Li Qingshan, she knew very well herself. That dark-skinned old man. Li Qingshan was stunned. He was glared at by Ru Xian. He smiled and said, "Senior Huasi. Sure enough, I was overthinking things. I'm relieved. You can rest assured for the rest of your life," Ru Xian said. "Then why aren't you returning to the Clear River Prefecture? Why are you wandering around here?" Li Qingshan then asked. "I'm thinking about how to deal with this locust plague." "What can you do about that?" "That's the Soaring Locust King, one of the 72 demon kings from a few thousand years ago. Even I wouldn't dare say that I can deal with him. The Soaring Locust King is only the source of the locust plague. Even if you kill him now, the plague will continue for a long time." "Really?" Li Qingshan was unconcerned. As long as he killed the Soaring Locust King, all that remained were regular locusts. What threat would they pose? "Look." Ru Xian waved her hand, and a strip of soil flew out from the soil. She tossed it to Li Qingshan casually. "This is a locust egg. There are several dozen eggs in there, and there are 2,000 or 3,000 eggs like this in the small area beneath my feet." Li Qingshan crushed the egg in his hand and did some calculations inside. He could not help but be surprised. 100,000 locusts had actually hatched in such a small area. Across the entire Green Province, that would be an astronomical figure. Along the way, I've seen situations like this everywhere. This is probably all part of the Soaring Locust King's plan. All he needs to do is hide and not be found, and the plague of locusts will continue. All the cultivators of the Green Province can do is run around and put out fires everywhere. They'll definitely be ambushed by the Soaring Locust King's clones. And if they ignore it, the number of mortals will rapidly decline, and the entire cultivation community of the Green Province will decline. No wonder he was suppressed under the Demon Suppression Hall. Li Qingshan shook his head. This was practically a super-terrorist. To be able to fight against the entire cultivation community of the Green Province alone. If his methods were not so insane, he would have to admire this soaring Locust King. Even though I can't do anything to the soaring Locust King, I can deal with regular locusts or even weaker clones. Without these claws, this plague of locusts can be stopped. Ru Xian's eyes shone with confidence. Or the plague. Li Qingshan guessed immediately. That's right. Ru Xian walked as she collected the eggs. She carefully selected them, and no one knew what her criteria were. Locusts can get sick. Li Qingshan caught up with her. Which living thing doesn't get sick? Cultivators don't get sick. All harmful conditions are diseases. It's just that you don't realize it. If you're not careful during cultivation, not only will you not be able to prolong your life, you'll go crazy and die suddenly. It's worse than any disease. Ru Xian tapped Li Qingshan's chest lightly. Compared to Ru Xian's demon, it's a disease of the heart. If you put it that way, it makes sense. Li Qingshan grabbed her hand. It was as warm as jade. Otherwise, what kind of diseases do you think the imperial physicians in the imperial hospital treat? Flu, fever, infertility. Well, infertility still needs to be treated. After all, it's difficult for cultivators to have children. In short, they treat cultivators who won't get sick. Ru Xian held his hand and walked slowly. Alright, now you want to cure the soaring Locust King's disease and save the entire Green Province, right? At least you still have some brains. Ru Xian complimented. You're a mutant, but you came all the way to Green Province. You don't even care about yourself. You only care about saving the lives of humans. What kind of mental illness is this? Li Qingshan laughed. Do you understand the benevolence of doctors? Nope. What kind of reward do you think the King of Chu will give me if I manage to research this plague? Ru Xian smiled resplendently, revealing her neat, white teeth. I don't think there's a lack of benefits. Li Qingshan laughed. He couldn't help but admire her intelligence. Then you better hurry up. Don't let others get ahead of you. Normal students of the School of Medicine won't waste their time on this. Ru Xian wasn't worried at all. The foundation of the School of Medicine was to cure diseases, not to create plagues. Even the plague ghost was fundamentally a method of treatment. Killing and injuring enemies was secondary. They wouldn't specialize in creating plagues at all. Although the effects of plagues were terrifying, they were actually very useless. Ru Xian wouldn't have spent so much time and energy on this if she didn't have a deep grudge against them. In a head-on battle, anything was better than using plagues. Moreover, after decades of research and the help of a great cultivator, she was only able to create a decent plague after she passed the second heavenly tribulation. Moreover, it could only be used against enemies at the level of Qi practitioners. Chapter 994. If there's anything you need help with, feel free to ask. Li Qingshan patted his chest before adding, this isn't for you. I have grievances with the soaring Locust King. When I return to the Green Province this time, if I get the chance, I'll finish him off as well. Stay away from me, Ru Xian said. I'm not joking, Li Qingshan said. I'm not joking. Don't you have grievances with the soaring Locust King? If he sees this. Ru Xian raised Li Qingshan's hand and gestured, who knows what accidents might happen. All right then. Li Qingshan let go of Ru Xian's hand. With her cultivation method and cultivation, she basically would not be in any danger as long as the soaring Locust King's main body did not take action. He passed a jade tablet to her. If you encounter any danger, I'll be there as soon as I'm summoned. I hope you finish your pesticide soon. Li Qingshan clasped his hands and bade farewell, but he felt rather reluctant inside. As he gazed at her face, he suddenly thought of how she was completely naked in the gloomy jungle of the Mist Province. He shook his head and dismissed this thought. He hugged her gently, but the sensation of contact was as hard as jade. He smiled. You sure aren't giving me any face. All right, you can take your time with your research. I'm leaving. Li Qingshan took off, returning to little Anne and the little phoenix's side who waited in the distance. Ru Xin secretly let out a sigh of relief before curling her lips. Pesticide? That's a nice name. Li Qingshan and little Anne arrived in the Chain Mountains. Looking out, barren mountains rose and fell. Only the relatively colder, high mountains remained verdant. Thinking back to the sights they had seen along the way, the locust plague seemed even more terrifying than the demon plague of the Mist Province. Father, it's bare here. What's there to play with? After traveling for over 100,000 kilometers, the little phoenix had had his fill of flying. He was in a hurry to find something interesting to do. There's nothing fun here, but this is your dad's house. Li Qingshan and little Anne exchanged glances. Warmth filled their eyes. This was the first place they had settled down after leaving the Crouching Ox village. This mountain range? Too ordinary. The little phoenix had witnessed the wondrous sight of Fire Melt Mountain and the majestic scenery of Towering City, so his standards were already extremely high. Even if the Yu Mountains had not been affected by the locust plague, they were not much better than regular mountain ranges. Not this mountain range, but the one over there. Li Qingshan flew and landed on a protruding cliff halfway up a lonely peak. He stretched out his hand and gently brushed the rock wall. The dust scattered, revealing the 3 words, Qing Zhao's home. Opening the mountain door, little Phoenix rushed into the cave dwelling and quickly flew 1 round. The light emitted from him lit up the dark mountainside as he cried out, Dad, your home is so small. Small? The place I lived in the past wasn't even 1,000th the size of this place. Just how much hardship did I have to go through to obtain a proper dwelling? I haven't taught you anything after coming out for so long, so you better properly experience this place first, just in case you don't know how fortunate you are. Li Qingshan said in exasperation. The little phoenix's luck was just too good. Not only did he possess the powerful bloodline of the phoenix, but he also possessed the strength of a demon commander the moment he was born. He was taken care of by the divine Wudong tree on Fire Melt Mountain, and he had Li Qingshan's support when he came out. His path of life had basically been smooth without any setbacks at all. If this continued, it would not be a good thing. He did not want to change his name to Tian Yi or something in the future. Please don't, Dad. Isn't this even worse than Fire Melt Mountain? The little phoenix lunged over and begged. As long as you defeat this prayer bead, I'll let you out. Otherwise. Little Anne picked up a skull prayer bead. The little phoenix shook his head forcefully. He had been plucked quite a few more times along the way, so he completely understood one thing. No matter how gentle and kind this woman had become, she was still terrifying deep down. Do you know why I've come to the Green Province? Li Qingshan asked sternly. To slay a dragon. The little phoenix said immediately. You haven't seen the Dragon King of the Sea, but you've seen the Banyan Tree King. They're the equally renowned demon kings of the 10 directions. I remember you said you wanted to help me, Li Qingshan said sternly. Why, yes. The little phoenix hesitated. He had personally witnessed the Banyan Tree King's strength. If he faced an opponent like that, he would not be able to help at all. Or are you just saying that? No, I have to work hard to become stronger. Then let me have a look. Li Qingshan nodded in satisfaction. A child would always be a child. It's just a prayer bead. Come. The little phoenix said to little Anne, brimming with fighting spirit. With a flick of Little N's finger, a skull prayer bead turned into a skeletal demon in mid-air and knocked the little phoenix away. Although the skull prayer beads had been severely damaged in the 3 heavenly tribulations, with more than half of them directly shattered and annihilated, the remaining prayer beads had a qualitative increase in strength. If there were enough resources to repair them, each of them would have the strength of a demon king. The prayer bead that Little N flicked out was the most intact one among them. He pressed the little phoenix down and gave it a good beating, while plucking a few of its feathers. However, this stimulated the little phoenix's ferocity even more. It was indeed worthy of being influenced by Li Qingshan's thoughts. I won't be lenient. If you lose, then die. Who wants you to be lenient? Hence, after flying for hundreds of thousands of miles, the little phoenix began an even more arduous prison life. The dark mountainside had become an arena. Go early and return early. Little N signaled to Li Qingshan before sitting down and continuing to meditate on the scriptures. After undergoing the 3rd heavenly tribulation and achieving balance between Buddhism and demonic, she gained a brand new understanding of Buddhist scriptures and dhyana. Right now, she was comprehending the scriptures of the school of Vinaya and the school of Chan once again. Li Qingshan turned around and left the dwelling, returning to the Clear River Prefecture. He planned on meeting a few old friends before heading north to the Chan Monastery of Devanaga with Little N. However, he was still 50 kilometers away from Clear River City when Demon Chi surged into the air in the distance. What heavy demon Chi up ahead? As soon as he said that, he heard a bellow from afar where the demon Chi surged into the air. All of Li Qingshan's friends must die. Fuck your mother. Li Qingshan flew into a rage. He was no longer in the mood to ride the clouds leisurely anymore. A wave of air suddenly erupted behind him, whistling through the air. The swarm of insects flooded over. Hua Qinglu frowned and formed a seal with her fingers. The fragrance of flowers permeated the surroundings, and the lingering fragrance became tangible, wrapping around everyone on the deck. She suddenly left the dragon ship and flew over the surface of the water, flying towards the Clear River Prefecture. The huge dragon ship glided forwards a little further before being swallowed by the swarm of insects. With an ear-piercing screech, the sturdy hull of the ship was forcefully chewed to pieces by countless locusts. Even the sturdiest keel was gone. The mortals who had been enveloped by the fragrance had never seen such a terrifying sight even in their nightmares, and they flew over the river without touching the ground. Apart from Yu Shuquang, Huang Binggu, and Lu Hong who remained composed, everyone else shrieked hysterically. Hua Qinglu knew that this was not something that regular locusts could achieve, and locust demons would never stoop to eating food like that. It was still something the soaring Locust King had done. The swarm of insects was not just a collection of locusts. All of the clones of the soaring Locust King radiated with surging demon chi, merging with every corner of the swarm. Infected by the demon chi, the regular locusts mutated too. They swelled up, and their mouths sharpened. They went from insects that ate grass to carnivorous beasts. A single one was nothing. They might not even be more powerful than a wild dog, but what if there were millions of them? Although the lifespans of these transformed locusts were extremely short, less than an hour, they were the most vicious aspect of the locust plague. Wherever they passed by, there would be barren wasteland. The soaring Locust King isn't just coming for these people. He's going to massacre the entire city. Hua Qinglu understood. Glancing out from the corner of her eye, she saw over a dozen locusts that had reached Demon General Rush over from all directions. Including the boatman and helmsman on the ship, she had several dozen people with her. This was quite a burden on her, so she moved much slower. Just like how the Banyan Tree King and the Great Whale King were known for being big, the soaring Locust King was renowned for its speed for being soaring, which was why the encirclement of the cultivation community of the Green Province had failed time and time again. All of his clones had inherited this characteristic, so they were startlingly fast. Even if Hua Qinglu did not bring anyone with her, it would still be difficult for her to escape. "Commander, this won't do," Yu Shuquang said. I know. Hua Qinglu's face stiffened. The fragrance that wrapped around her suddenly severed, abandoning all the mortals. She was no longer the little girl from before. Especially after experiencing the Banyan Tree King's wisdom imbuement, she had developed a determination to kill. The mortals stopped crying out and flew forwards a little further. Before they could even realize what was happening, they fell into the river with a plop. No! Lu Hong and Huang Binggu cried out miserably. Among them were disciples they had spent many years with, as well as clansmen who had placed all their hopes on them. My apologies, my two fellows. Yu Shuquang sighed. Lu Hong and Huang Binggu were both speechless. With their experience, they could completely understand this choice, but they were unable to accept reality so easily. They had experienced so much danger along the way, yet the outcome was so horrific. Hua Qinglu immediately sped up, but she was not out of danger. The encirclement of the locust demon generals gradually closed in, and the buzzing of their flapping wings constantly drew closer. She tossed out another scarlet talisman, which suddenly turned into a whirlwind, pushing her forward rapidly. She charged out of the encirclement in a single stroke, but before she could even celebrate, a yellow figure flashed before her. A man blocked her way. The man had a pair of antennae on his head, and he wore layers of transparent locust wings on his back. His compound eyes were emotionless as he stared at Hua Qinglu. He asked, "You're also Li Qingshan's friend?" "That's right." Hua Qinglu's heart sank. She secretly took out an escape talisman, but the locust demon before her had already reached Demon Commander. He was far more powerful than her, so she was not confident about escaping even if she used an escape talisman. How bold of you. You can be regarded as a beauty among humans, so you must taste very good. You want to use an escape talisman? Stop dreaming. You can't escape. If you didn't admit it, I might have spared your life, but now. Chapter 995. Lu Zhangqing was handling official business in the government office. Official documents were piled up on the desk like small mountains. Even though he was a foundation-building cultivator whose energy and physical strength far surpassed that of ordinary people, he was still extremely busy, regretting not resigning from this position earlier. Suddenly, the soaring locust army arrived, and the alarm in the city rang out. He could not even be bothered with regret. He immediately requested reinforcements from the commandery city of Rui as he hurried to the parlor of clouds and rain. In order to guard against situations like this, every single prefectural city had golden core cultivators watching over it apart from large-scale formations. She was the person in charge of the formations. The person in charge of the Clear River Prefecture currently stood on the rooftop of the parlor of clouds and rain. She wore a solemn, black dress, and her face was covered by a thick, black veil. Her phoenix-like eyes stared at the swarm of insects that blanketed the sky. Suddenly, she called out, "Qinglu." She was about to fly up and provide assistance. "Sect Master Qiu. You mustn't." Lu Changqing rushed over and tried to dissuade her. "Prefect Lu, Qinglu is still outside," Begonia frowned. "Even if you leave, you might not be able to save Commander Hua. If there's no one in charge of the formations in the city, the soaring Locust King will breach through it very soon. By then, the millions of lives here will all be devoured by the insects." Lu Changqing bowed to the ground, rather afraid to look her in the eye. Begonia struggled for a moment before sighing in the end. She knew Lu Changqing was right. Her cultivation was not weak, but she was not skilled in open battles. It was basically impossible for her to save Hua Qinglu from the sea of insects. The most rational choice was to hold on to the formations and buy as much time as possible, waiting for reinforcements from the Rui commandery. "Qinglu, you must escape," Begonia thought to herself, powering up the formations. Suddenly, she heard the roar of the soaring Locust King, and her heart paused. She thought of the scarlet-haired, scarlet-eyed demon instead. The sound waves spread into the distance. Everyone in the prefectural city felt like the roar was right beside their ears. Yu Shuquang and the others bore the brunt of it. They covered their ears and knelt on the ground as blood oozed from their mouths and noses. Their faces were filled with pain. If it were not for the protection of Hua Qinglu's fragrance, they might even have died on the spot. Hua Qinglu trembled slightly, but her expression did not change. She also possessed a few life-saving items, but they were all useless in such a dire situation. Don't tell me I'm really going to die here today. The sky darkened as the cloud of insects passed through, whistling and buzzing as they swept towards the prefectural city in a black mass. The half-man, half-locust, terrifying flying locust demon commander let out a sinister smile. He did not come here just for the 3 words, Li Qingshan. Even if Lu Hong and the rest did not know who Li Qingshan was, he would still hunt him down. It would just be a little less fun. If it were only for revenge, there would be no need for such a grand spectacle. A single flying locust demon commander would be enough. Attacking a prefectural city was something he had been planning for a very long time. After the plague of locusts and famine, thousands of villages had become desolate. Large numbers of people gathered in the prefectural city. If he could devour a prefectural city, not only would it deal a heavy blow to the cultivation community of the Green Province, but it would also increase the number and quality of his clones. This was a war between him and all the humans of the Green Province. Whether they were Li Qingshan's friends or not, they would all die. As for Li Qingshan, who had fled to the Mist Province, he would obviously go find him personally once he dealt with the Green Province. Golden light flashed through Hua Qinglu's eyes. Golden vines wrapped around her, blooming with golden sunflowers and erupting with resplendent, scorching light. Thousands of locusts shrieked as they were reduced to ashes. Even the flying locust demon general began to smoke as he retreated. The flying locust demon commander squinted his eyes slightly, and a streak of light shot towards his forehead. This was originally a life-saving sword talisman that the Sword Collection Palace had given to disciples. It was equivalent to the full-powered strike of a second heavenly tribulation sword cultivator. Hua Sengzan had specially given it to her. Child's play. The flying locust demon commander's mouth suddenly split open, turning into the mouthpiece of a locust. It bit down on the streak of light and swallowed it. Hua Qinglu immediately used this opportunity to activate the escape talisman, turning into a streak of light and shooting backwards, passing through the surging swarm of insects. You're looking to die. The flying locust demon commander sneered. He did not pursue her. Hua Qinglu's escape talisman was a 5-kilometer escape talisman. It could turn into a streak of light and instantly travel 5 kilometers. Because the flying locust demon commander was blocking the way, the only direction she could choose was behind her. She did not even dare to travel to the left or right, afraid of being intercepted. All she could do was distance herself from the flying locust demon commander as much as possible, as well as the prefectural city of Clear River. However, after flying for 5 kilometers, she failed to escape alive. She discovered that she was in the sea of insects. She could no longer see or hear anything else. Only countless locusts surged towards her from all directions. The sound of their flapping wings was deafening. She just happened to retreat into the depths of the sea of insects. She had just moved from one desperate situation to another. She had already grown accustomed to death, and she had received enlightenment from the Banyan Tree King. Originally, she thought she could face it calmly, but she never thought she would still feel some fear when it really came down to it. She was unwilling to die to the insects, so she wanted to die with them. Don't be afraid. Right at this moment, a familiar voice sounded out by her ear. She turned around in astonishment and noticed that she wasn't alone in this surging sea of insects. A man was looking at her with a calm smile on his face. The face in her memory didn't seem to have changed at all. Could it be a hallucination before her death? Long time no see, Qinglu. Li Qingshan did not directly charge over because of the soaring Locust King's words. Instead, he completely hid his presence and used another concealment talisman. Seeing how Hua Qinglu and the others were in dire straits, he silently approached them, ready to save them. No one noticed him in the extremely chaotic situation. Big Brother Li. Hua Qinglu blinked her eyes and said in disbelief. The swarm of insects suddenly discovered Li Qingshan and surged over to bite and tear at him. Demonify. Li Qingshan muttered. His demon heart flashed, and demon qi surged out violently. 100,000 locusts were knocked away and reduced to dust, creating a hole in the sea of insects. In the center of the hole, Li Qingshan was clad in demonic armor. The horned helmet covered half of his face, only revealing a pair of dark red eyes. His breastplate was like a roaring tiger's head. It was only the simplest form of protection, revealing his powerful, bronze skin. He gave off a vicious presence. You've returned. Hua Qinglu smiled brightly after her initial shock. Let me slaughter these insects first, and then we can catch up slowly. Li Qingshan wrapped his left hand around her waist and waved his right hand. Chains of demon suppression. Swish. A chain that resembled a black dragon whistled out. It was several thousand meters long, coiling around his hand. With a gentle shake, it straightened out, and he swung it forward forcefully. The soaring Locust King could not be bothered with tormenting Yu Shuquang and the others anymore. Just when he was about to eat them, he was suddenly alarmed. A black chain suddenly split open the sea of insects, and two figures leapt out. Chains of demon suppression. You are... What, soaring Locust King? You don't even recognize me anymore. Speaking of which, we've never met before, so I'll introduce you to me today. Chapter 996. The voice reached the prefectural city. Begonia was stunned, while Lu Chongqing was overjoyed. Qingshan's back. Alright. I haven't even gone looking for you, yet you've actually delivered yourself to me. Watch how your friends die first. The soaring Locust King laughed viciously. Over a dozen flying locust demon generals struck out together. Their sharp, spear-like front legs stabbed towards the three of them randomly. However, before their laughter had even subsided, a series of blurs appeared in their eyes. Li Qingshan seemed to appear before every single flying locust demon general at the same time. He swung his fists, knife hand strikes, elbows. In a single moment, the flying locust demon generals were all torn to pieces. Their juices splattered everywhere. Before the flying locust demon commander could even return to his senses, Li Qingshan had already arrived before him. He was basically right in his face. He asked, just by you. How is that possible? The flying locust demon commander paled in fright. Li Qingshan's instantaneous burst of speed was actually enough to leave behind blurs in his eyes. This was not something a golden core cultivator or a demon commander could achieve. Hua Qinglu had already calmed down after seeing him. Hua Qinglu's mind eased up when she saw him. She completely stopped worrying now. As she gazed at his tall figure, the scenes in her memories overlapped. The Westgate Granny of the past, the soaring Locust King of the present. Her opponents ranged from weak chi practitioners to powerful demon kings, but he still stood before her, as if he could block out all the wind and rain. With a flash, the flying locust demon commander retreated rapidly, vanishing into the surging sea of insects. He wanted to use the insect swarm tactic to drown Li Qingshan. Tell me, you're a mighty demon king, so how can you be so petty? I've only cursed you a little, yet you say something like all of Li Qingshan's friends have to die. Aren't you a little too stupid? Li Qingshan walked slowly. He followed the flying locust demon commander at the same pace. The chains of demon suppression wove together into a net-like sphere, whistling as they revolved, tearing apart the locusts that lunged over. After becoming a demon king, even if he did not use any abilities, just his body alone was enough to crush the flying locust demon commander. The reason why he chose to demonify was to hide the demon chi that he leaked out unintentionally, as well as to give his ridiculously tough body a reasonable explanation. You damned bald donkey! The flying locust demon marshal gritted his teeth. Seeing that he could not escape, he circulated all his demon chi and swiped at Li Qingshan's throat. Bald donkey! How can I put up with you? Li Qingshan casually grabbed the flying locust demon marshal's wrist, and the demon suppression chain coiled around him, firmly binding him. He grabbed his head, pulled it in front of him, and pointed at his own head. This is called hair. The flying locust demon marshal's killing intent skyrocketed. His mouth cracked open into a ferocious mouthpart as he bit down on Li Qingshan's head. Li Qingshan raised his head and headbutted him. The sharp mouthparts were broken and scattered. Damn it! Damn it! Damn it! The flying locust demon marshal struggled with all its might, the chains of demon suppression creaking. Demon suppression! Li Qingshan chanted, and the demon suppression tower descended from above. With a rumble, it crushed the flying locust demon marshal beneath it. With a thought, the demon suppression tower rapidly shrank, flying back into his hand. He glanced inside, and the flying locust demon marshal turned back into a tiny locust. It seemed to be suppressed by the demon suppression tower very much. Li Qingshan, you'll regret this, said the flying locust demon marshal. I think I've heard you say that before. Whatever. If you're dissatisfied, then send your original body. Li Qingshan did not care. He planned on taking the flying locust demon marshal back for Ru Xian to study. If it was useless, then he could get little N to use the Buddha-slaying sword. He would definitely be able to injure the soaring locust king's body. Hua Chenglu used her cultivation method to protect the three of them. As she watched Li Qingshan vanish into the sea of insects with the flying locust demon marshal, she became rather worried about whether he would be in danger or not. However, Li Qingshan strolled back. The revolving chains of demon suppression tore apart the locusts that lunged over. Did he escape? Hua Chenglu stopped worrying when she saw how he was safe and sound. With your big brotherly taking action, do you really think he can escape? Li Qingshan showed off the exquisite demon suppression tower in his hand with a smile. Hua Chenglu was surprised. Originally, she thought even if she could not catch up to him after all these years of painstaking cultivation, she would not fall too far behind. She never thought his cultivation would actually reach such an unbelievable level. Qingshan. Before the three of them could even react to what had happened, the name Li Qingshan still echoed through their heads. When they actually looked at the Li Qingshan before them, they felt like they were afraid to recognize him. Sure enough, it's my old friends. The locusts have found the right target. Li Qingshan smiled. Lu Hong, Huang Binggu, and Yu Shuquang had all had important interactions with him in the past, and they had all assisted him in the past. The locusts in the surroundings suddenly stopped attacking them. They flew off in a grandiose manner. Li Qingshan frowned. They sure don't give up. As it turned out, the soaring locust king had not given up even though the flying locust demon commander had been captured. He continued to lead the army of locusts towards the prefectural city. The cloud of insects passed through, and the surroundings lit up. Their field of vision opened up again. All Hua Chenglu saw was the black swarm of insects entrenched in the protective formations, attacking madly without any fear of death. They basically turned the prefectural city into a ball of insects. Before long, the protective formations were on the verge of collapse. It was impossible for a formation that enveloped such a large area to be too sturdy in the first place. After hearing Li Qingshan's voice, Begonia became slightly agitated. She lost some of her control over the formation. With Lu Changqing at the lead, the cultivators stationed in the city constantly unleashed techniques. Fire, water, and lightning surged into the sky, killing a large number of locusts. However, there were just far too many locusts, numbering in the hundreds of millions. It was impossible to kill all of them. The black cloud of insects remained entrenched in the sky the entire time, as if they were pressing down bit by bit. Even the cultivators could not help but show fear, while the regular people were scared out of their wits. Some hid in the buildings and trembled, while others ran around the streets like headless flies, crying out. It truly seemed like the end of the world. Big Brotherly, what do we do? Hua Qinglu asked. If the locusts managed to get into the city, even without a great threat like the flying locust demon commander, they could easily cause hundreds of thousands or even millions of casualties. Easy. Li Qingshan flipped his right hand and lifted up another item. This is the Azura field. Afterwards, it was said that the North Moon had taken away the Azura field, so how did it end up in Big Brother Li's hands now? Li Qingshan tossed the Azura field into the air, and it rapidly expanded, hovering above the Clear River Prefecture. Suddenly, it released a blood-red swirl, sucking in the swarm of locusts into the Azura field. Their numbers were terrifying, but it was not like there was no way to deal with them. Although the locusts had demonified, they were still regular wild beasts after all. How could they stop a supreme arcane treasure? Li Qingshan. I, the soaring locust king, will definitely make you die without a proper burial. All of your family and friends will die horrible deaths. The swarm of locusts roared out furiously, vaguely revealing a vicious face. Li Qingshan only responded with a great laugh. Begonia immediately felt the pressure on her lessen drastically. She could not help but look in the direction of the laughter. When she saw Li Qingshan's figure, she could not help but shudder inside. Li Qingshan sensed something and glanced over. So it's her. She really has undergone the second heavenly tribulation already. Although she wore a solemn, black dress, it was unable to conceal her impressive figure. Her face hidden behind the black veil instead added a sense of mystery and allure to her. When he recalled everything from the past, he could not help but nod with a smile. However, Begonia immediately looked away, no longer looking at him. Li Qingshan was rather confused, but he was in no mood to pay attention to this right now. He focused on powering the Azura field and continuing to devour the swarm of locusts. A group of cultivators from the 100 schools of thought had rushed over to provide assistance. They all stopped at this moment, watching this from afar. The Azura field. Li Qingshan. Han Tie's cold face was also slightly shocked. After all these years, had he already become so powerful? Our School of Novels disciple has returned. Lu Chuanfeng was overjoyed. The disciples of the School of Novels behind him had heard the name Li Qingshan repeated for many years. However, most of them had not even seen Li Qingshan before and had only heard it as a story. Unexpectedly, seeing him with their own eyes, they found him to be even more amazing than the stories. The cultivators in the prefectural city also stopped casting their techniques and raised their heads to watch this unimaginable battle. After Li Qingshan captured the flying locust demon marshal alive, the remaining flying locust king's clones were completely powerless to deal with such a situation. They could only control their bodies and not be drawn into the Azura field. However, they gradually separated from the ordinary locusts and could only flee in all directions. Li Qingshan appeared in the sky above the prefectural city in a flash. Demon suppression chains flew out and pierced through the backs of the locusts, suppressing and capturing them. In an instant, the terrifying locust plague was completely eliminated. Everyone felt that it was surreal. Li Qingshan still held the small demon suppression tower in his right hand. Many thin chains hung down from his left hand. Each chain had a string of locusts threaded through it, and they were all struggling to move. He dispersed the demonic armor around him and stood in the void. He looked down at the familiar city below and felt the familiar aura. A smile appeared on his face. Everyone was also looking up at him. The cultivators seemed to be looking at an unbelievable miracle, while the mortals saw a savior. It's Li Qingshan who saved us, someone said. It was all thanks to the flying locust king's repeated words. Then, Cheers rang out and gradually grew louder. Countless people walked onto the streets and shouted his name. Hello everyone. It's just a small matter. No need to be so polite. Li Qingshan smiled and waved at the crowd. The string of locusts in his hand also shook with him. He was in a very good mood. Although he did not mind doing bad things, doing good things still made him quite happy. However, in the eyes of the cultivators, they felt like this would damage his bearing when he swept through the locusts. Even if he refused to leave and hide his contributions and fame, and insisted on enjoying everyone's cheers, he should maintain the bearing that a cultivator should possess. Hua Qinglu smiled. Big Brother Li was still the same Big Brother Li. He would always do something a little strange. Sect Master Qiu, I'll be the host today. I'll host a banquet in the Parlor of Clouds and Rain to welcome my old friends from the Clear River Prefecture. Chapter 997. Sect Master Qiu, this, Lu Changqing was tongue-tied. Li Qingshan was a great hero who had saved the Clear River Prefecture after all, so how could she treat him like this? However, ever since Begonia returned to the Clear River Prefecture, she seemed to have changed into a different person. Not only did she investigate deeply, but she had completely vanished from her old ways of using money and power. She would always treat people with some coldness. However, with her cultivation, she obviously had the right to do that. No one dared to say anything. Even now, it was difficult for Lu Changqing, the prefect of the Clear River Prefecture, to persuade her otherwise. The difference in cultivation was obvious. Li Qingshan was surprised as well. Why did Begonia not seem happy at all when she saw him? Instead, she seemed extremely cold. It was no wonder that she had not contacted him after emerging from seclusion. Did she have a change of heart? However, it was not like he had the right to blame her for her change of heart. If you don't want to welcome me, then don't. Why do you look like a dead man when you're dressed like this? I'm a dead man. Ugh, my condolences. Li Qingshan caught a whiff of heavy resentment, so it was even more difficult for him to say anything. The only person who could make her fall in love with someone else must have been a cultivator. He would not have died of illness or illness for no reason. He must have been killed. Over the past few years, the soaring Locust King had probably caused the greatest casualties among cultivators in the Green Province. As a result, he said, this soaring Locust King really is despicable. As he said that, he was about to leave, but he heard Begonia say, it's not the soaring Locust King. It's the Dragon King of the Sea. The Dragon King of the Sea. Li Qingshan stopped. Sister Qiu, do you still miss that North Moon? Hua Qinglu walked over. Li Qingshan looked back and looked at Begonia in surprise. Begonia avoided his gaze. He's just a wretched demon. What's there to miss? Li Qingshan smiled. All right, since you're not going to welcome me, let's go somewhere else. We'll come again another day. At this moment, Han Tie and the others arrived on the rooftop. You guys stay, I'll leave. Begonia flew into the sky. Li Qingshan looked at her flying figure and couldn't help but shake his head. He didn't know whether he should be happy or worried about the infatuation of a beauty. Big Brother Li, because of the North Moon, Sister Qiu's temper has been rather strange in the past few years, Hua Qinglu explained for Begonia. She did not want the two of them to be on bad terms. It's nothing, I've seen many weird people. Li Qingshan smiled and asked Han Tie, where is your sister? He's currently in secluded cultivation in the Rui Commandery. Han Tie was originally rather displeased with Li Qingshan. As soon as this son-in-law of the Han family went to the Mist Province, there was no news of him at all. He was truly irresponsible. However, when he arrived before Li Qingshan, he was unable to voice his displeasure. He was not afraid of Li Qingshan's strength, nor was he grateful for Li Qingshan's benevolence. Instead, he sensed a sense of upliftment and ambition from him. As a cultivator, if he could not forge ahead valiantly and increase his cultivation as much as possible, could he still be considered a cultivator? The teachings of the Han family had always been to look down on those who were infatuated with love. They admired his personality. It was exactly because of this that his elder sister, who had no interest in men at all and could even ignore a handsome man like Hua Sengzan, fell in love with him. Sigh, that sure is unfortunate, but it doesn't matter. I'll be spending a lot of time in the Green Province in the future. Big Brother Li, aren't you the White Hawk commander of the South Sea Commandery? Don't you have to return to the Mist Province? Hua Qinglu asked. As a member of the Hawk Wolf Guard, she still valued the authority of the Hawk Wolf Guard very much. I've been promoted. Sir Hawk God, our protector, has personally appointed me to go to the Dragon Province to be appointed, said Li Qingshan. The protector Hawk God. Doesn't that mean you have to go to the Dragon Province? Hua Qinglu was reluctant to part with him. Sir Hawk God can't be so unreasonable. I've been away from the Green Province for so many years, and it's rare for me to return, so I need to get some proper rest. I'll go to the sect and greet my master, and I have some important matters I need to deal with in my life. Yeah, and as a disciple of the School of Novels, you can't not write for so long. Lu Chuanfeng interrupted from the side. If you hadn't mentioned it, I would have almost forgotten that I'm still a disciple of the School of Novels. Li Qingshan smiled. Qingshan, you can't forget your roots. You're a member of the School of Novels when you're alive, and you'll be a ghost of the School of Novels when you're dead, Lu Chuanfeng also smiled. You're the one who's dead. Alright, I'll start writing again when I have the time, Li Qingshan agreed without any hesitation. Very soon, the banquet was set up on the rooftop. Li Qingshan sat in the main seat like it was obvious. I came back in a hurry this time, so I didn't specially prepare any gifts. However, I did gather some local products from the Mist Province over the years, so please have a taste. The spiritual fruits, medicinal herbs, and alcohol were all spoils of war he had slaughtered his way here. They were no longer of any use to him, so he could only taste them. It was perfect for treating the guests. However, the significance to the Foundation establishment cultivators was completely different. Just from the glow they glowed with, they could tell their value. They only accepted it after a series of excuses, thanking Li Qingshan. Big Brother Li, I heard that the South is a land of wilderness. May I ask how it's different from the Green Province? Hua Qinglu looked at Li Qingshan seriously. Just now, she was unable to see him clearly in the chaotic battle, but right now, she could sense how he was changing within the unchanging. He seemed more and more confident and high-spirited, as if the world was within his grasp. Suddenly, she thought of the kiss from many years ago. In terms of what's special, there's a lot. Li Qingshan drank a cup of alcohol and mentioned the various local customs and practices of the Mist Province, the man-eating bone-eating tribes, the savage mountain where demonic cultivators gathered, the mysterious merfolk sea fair, the banyan forest that stretched for thousands of kilometers. Hua Qinglu became rather entranced as she listened. Yearning filled her eyes. The distant land of the south was far more wondrous than the descriptions in books. The rooftop fell silent. Everyone else listened attentively too. They were cultivators countless times more powerful than mortals, but just like how mortals could not leave a village or a city, they also had their own restraints. It was possible that they could never reach the distant South Sea in their entire lives. As he spoke, Li Qingshan's gaze drifted about. The scenes of the past flashed through his eyes again, as well as the dangers he could not mention. Only when he returned to his senses and saw the familiar faces and the familiar night scenery around him did he come to a realization. I've really returned. Li Qingshan gazed at the starry sky. He worked hard in search of strength, but strength was not just about defeating something or possessing something. Instead, it was about breaking free from restraints and seeing sights he had never seen before, going to places he had never been to before. Beyond the 9 heavens was still a little far away, but he had not let down his promise to himself. After the banquet, everyone dispersed. Li Qingshan became slightly tipsy. Lu Chuanfeng invited him to return to Cloud Wisp Island to take a look, but he turned it down. I'll return to my dwelling first and deal with the clone of the Soaring Locust King. I'll go to the 100 Schools of Thought in a few days. Afterwards, he left Clear River City. He did not return to the Chain Mountains. Instead, he flew southwest based on his senses and arrived before a lake surrounded by mountains. He sensed the aura from the bottom of the lake and leapt into the water with a smile. Chapter 998. Deep into the night, the prefectural city recovered its peace. On the docks to the west of the city, lanterns lit up with the stars in the sky. The two banks of the river were dotted with torches, moving about in the darkness. All the disciples of the Iron Fist headquarters searched along the two banks. Lu Hong leaned against a weeping willow as he gazed at the pitch-black clear river silently. Huang Binggu pulled away slightly and stood nearby. He was also stern. I'm useless. I've troubled you, master. Li Long knelt on the ground. I'm just a bag of old bones. If I die, then so be it. It's just a pity that your senior brother's family. Lu Hong let out a long sigh and helped Li Long up. It's not your fault. It's all fate. Senior brother is blessed by the heavens, and you're skilled in martial arts. You'll definitely make it safely, Li Long comforted him. Before long, a call rang out from the darkness, found him. Found him. A disciple of the Drawn Rains village was rescued by a fishing boat and discovered by the searchers. Huang Binggu let out a sigh of relief. Very soon, the survivors were found one by one, slightly more than what he had imagined. Over 5 kilometers downstream, Wang Lei emerged from the river with Yi Dachuan, whose fate was unknown. After being tossed into the water, he immediately held his breath and sank to the bottom of the lake. As it turned out, regular locusts still moved based on their instincts. They would not enter the water, but the Clear River Prefecture was famous for its rivers. The water system was well developed, so basically everyone knew how to swim. It was a blessing in disguise. Afterwards, the Flying Locust Demon Commander was captured by Li Qingshan, and the Soaring Locust King ordered the army of locusts to attack the city with everything they had, allowing them to escape. However, many of them were drowned or bitten to death. Their whereabouts were even unknown. Wang Lei personally saw Yi Dachuan's wife flop around on the surface of the water, crying for help. The locusts ate her head off. There was also an unlucky person from the Drawn Rains village who was caught by a locust demon that had lunged into the water. In the blink of an eye, even his bones had vanished. As long as you're alive, as long as you're alive. Lu Hong's eyes were filled with tears as he clutched Wang Lei's shoulders tightly. He didn't have any children, so Wang Lei was like his own son. Master, senior brother, it's cold outside. Hurry up and get on the carriage. Li Long called out to Huang Binggu, Manor Master Huang, I'll give you a ride. There's no need for that. Thank you for your kindness, fellow Taoist. If there's anything I can do for you in the future, just let me know. Huang Binggu thanked Li Long, then led the rest of his clansmen away from the dock, disappearing into the streets of the city. Li Long sent Lu Hong to the carriage and was about to follow up when his ears twitched as if he had heard something. Disregarding his status, he lay on the ground and listened carefully. The sound grew louder and louder until he heard a familiar buzzing sound. Li Long stood up in disbelief. As he looked at the stars on the horizon being swallowed by the darkness, he roused all of his spiritual qi and roared out as loudly as he could, the locust plague. Lu Chongqing had returned from the parlor of clouds and rain. He was in a great mood, and he was slightly drunk as well. He was currently splashing ink freely when he suddenly heard the sound. His hand that held the brush immediately trembled, and the ink spread. A ripple appeared on the surface of the lake, and the moonlight rippled with it. The lake could not be regarded as large, so Li Qingshan arrived at the bottom of the lake very soon. He arrived at the dwelling hidden at the bottom of the lake. Begonia currently sat with her legs crossed, with her back towards him. She said without even looking back, "Li Qingshan, what have you come for? If I remember correctly, I have a share here as well. Your man has returned from danger, so why don't you stand up to welcome him?" Li Qingshan arrived behind her with a smile, extending his hand towards her slender waist. "My man's surname isn't Li." Begonia shone with scarlet light, blocking Li Qingshan's hand. "Is there a difference? But since you like it." Li Qingshan's expression changed. His fangs elongated, and his scarlet hair draped down. His hands forcefully passed through the scarlet light and pulled her into his embrace. He whispered into her ear, "Isn't this better? Let go." Begonia's body stiffened. "Since you don't care about me, why did you come?" "Because you care about me." Li Qingshan smiled. "Piss off." Begonia barked. "I'm just joking. I clearly told you to contact me as soon as you emerged from secluded cultivation." "You piss off." Begonia shone with scarlet light, dyeing the dwelling at the bottom of the lake red. The lake water above rippled with scarlet light as well. Li Qingshan knew that now was not the time to be reasonable. He apologized by her ear and whispered sweet nothings into her ear. Just as he had expected, the scarlet light gradually dimmed. She no longer resisted violently. Smelling her faint fragrance and embracing her soft body, he felt even more intoxicated. He kissed her cheek through the black veil, but he saw that the corner of her eyes were glistening. She was actually crying silently. He could not help but be taken aback. Cultivators would not experience such great emotional fluctuations easily. Suddenly, he experienced an indescribable feeling, and his lust vanished. He asked gently, "What's wrong? Haven't I returned? What are you crying for?" "I know you're lying to me," Begonia grumbled. "Fine then. I admit I mixed in a little, but it's definitely not a lie," said Li Qingshan. He was not some infatuated man who liked to do whatever he wanted, but he was not a plant. He could not be emotionless. "Then how much did you mix in the parlor of clouds and rain?" Begonia asked. Ever since she emerged from seclusion and returned to the parlor of clouds and rain, she wanted to contact Li Qingshan. However, when she was not around, Li Qingshan had become the owner of the parlor of clouds and rain for a period of time. This was no different from releasing a monkey into a peach orchard. He could indulge himself and do whatever he wanted. Although this was nothing out of the ordinary in the cultivation world, she was the master of the parlor of clouds and rain. It was basically intolerable, so she cut him off in a fit of anger. "Cough, cough. That's all for show. I don't have any feelings." Li Qingshan rubbed his nose and felt rather embarrassed. "Did you know?" Begonia's voice drifted away. I've always been waiting for you. I've been waiting for you to lie to me and coax me." Begonia turned around and looked at Li Qingshan tearfully. Li Qingshan was very touched. He pulled her into his arms and comforted her gently. Begonia pressed her face against his chest. She vaguely made up her mind and wrapped her arms around his waist tightly. The moonlight shone through the lake, reflecting the crystal ceiling. It rippled with a faint, blue light. It was dark and tranquil. A while later, Li Qingshan removed her black veil. Her bare face carried faint traces of tears, but it was as beautiful as a crabapple. His breathing halted. He was slightly taken aback. He smiled. "You've become prettier again. No wonder you wear a veil. It's all because of you," Begonia said extremely seriously. She had not wasted the past few years. Instead, she had worked hard on the heart-dyeing art of rouge. Perhaps it was because she was compatible with the cultivation method, but she progressed rather quickly. She was glowing. Furthermore, he was more confident in using that spell. Li Qingshan was even more touched. He lowered his head and kissed her delicate red lips. After a deep kiss, he carried her horizontally and walked to the thick fur-covered stone bed. He had thought that she would be shy and struggle. He did not expect that she would curl up in his arms, as docile as a kitten. On the stone bed, there was another round of intimate and caressing. Qiu Haitang's face was flushed red. Her cloud-like black hair scattered down. Her ample bosom rose and fell slightly, and her black dress was a bit messy. Your man is not dead. It's too inauspicious to dress like this. How about? Li Qingshan said as he gently hooked her belt. Begonia's face became even redder. She closed her eyes tightly but did not object. Li Qingshan chuckled. He was about to undress the beauty when he saw Begonia's expression change. He could not help but ask, "What's wrong?" "Someone is attacking the prefectural city. I'm afraid it's the Flying Locust King. I have to hurry back. The defensive formation cannot be left unattended." Li Qingshan took a deep breath and pressed down on Begonia's shoulder. "Wait for me here. I'll be back soon." "But, no buts, this is a man's business." With a boom, the lake splashed into the sky. Li Qingshan spread his wings and flew into the astral wind layer. His expression was extremely ferocious. This time, he was truly angry. Any man who was interrupted at this time would want to kill someone. Arriving high in the sky, Li Qingshan summoned the demon-suppressing pagoda with his right hand and asked the Flying Locust Demon Marshal, "Flying Locust King, was it you again? How is it, Li Qingshan, you didn't expect this, right? In the words of you humans, this is called a sudden thrust. Do you think I'll be scared just because I lost a few clones?" The Flying Locust King said complacently. Ever since Li Qingshan demonstrated startling strength and captured the Flying Locust Demon Commander, he had immediately begun planning a second attack. Sure enough, he had grasped the opportunity. After sweeping through such a large-scale locust plague, everyone relaxed. They felt like they had survived a crisis. Begonia and Li Qingshan left the prefectural city one after another, leaving behind an unattended defensive formation. "You're welcome to come a few more times. I'd like to see just how many clones you have for me to kill." Li Qingshan sneered. "There's no need for a few more times. Once is enough. I'd advise you to stop, or I'll start a massacre." The Flying Locust King warned. "Do you think you can threaten me? You don't care about the lives of others, but what about that bitch from the Hawkwolf Guard? She's your partner, right? What do you think I'll do once I capture her? Don't you dare." Li Qingshan widened his eyes furiously. He recalled how Hua Qinglu had said she would return to the Hawkwolf Guard to deal with official matters after the banquet. She was still in Clear River City right now. "I've said I'll kill all of your friends and family, but if you're a little more sensible and let go of all of my clones, I can consider sparing that bitch's life. Soaring Locust King, if I don't kill you, my surname won't be Li." Li Qingshan's deep voice was filled with brutal killing intent, which made the Soaring Locust King shiver inside. He still wanted to say something, but Li Qingshan had already stowed the demon suppression tower away. He unfurled his wings of wind and flew towards the Clear River Prefecture, stirring up the atmospheric winds. "Commander Qian, Commander Qian. I'm Lu Changqing. The locust plague has come again. Please send reinforcements immediately." Lu Changqing requested reinforcements from the Rui Commandery again. Chapter 999. There were only a tenth of the number of locusts this time, and their overall quality was nowhere near as great. However, there was still a Flying Locust Demon Commander among them. He turned into a huge locust, the size of a soaring dragon ship. He flapped his wings and took to the air before smashing down viciously. This time, no one could stop him. Boom! 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 Without anyone to control the formations, they could only use the most basic of defense. Under the repeated collisions, they reached the brink of collapse very soon. In the hall of the Hawk-Wolf Guard, several dozen Scarlet Wolf Guards stood sternly. The great rumble was like thunder, striking against everyone's hearts viciously. The cries of fear from the mortals were like a tsunami, surging into the silent hall and throwing their minds into disorder. Even though they had been through 100 battles, many of their foreheads became covered in sweat. Only the woman before them remained absolutely composed. "Commander, what do you think we should do?" Yu Shuquang asked. "The locust demons are about to break through the city. Disperse. If you have the opportunity to save people, do so. If not, hide and wait for reinforcements," said Hua Qinglu. Everyone looked at one another. An order like that would make them feel dejected without a doubt. Are there any other orders?" Yu Shuquang asked. "Without my orders, don't return here." Hua Qinglu waved her hand and made her way towards the stairs. "Commander, you're staying behind?" Yu Shuquang frowned. Although the Hawk-Wolf Guard was one of the few structures in the prefectural city that possessed their own formations, the eye-catching Scarlet Hawk on the rooftop would definitely make this place the soaring Locust King's main target. "Cut the nonsense and disperse." Hua Qinglu glanced back at Yu Shuquang before disappearing on the stairs. "Yes." Yu Shuquang wanted to say something, but he clasped his hands in the end. With his cultivation, he was unable to help her at all. Hua Qinglu immediately noticed everyone's gazes and frowned. If she had guessed correctly, the soaring Locust King's first target this time was definitely her. She seemed to be able to sense the great malice of the flying Locust Demon Commander in the sky. The gaze from her compound eyes pierced through the floors and gathered on her. She directly returned to her room on the top floor. She sucked in a deep breath and took out a formation and a stack of talismans. She began casting them down. With a loud bang, under the bombardment of the flying Locust Demon Commander, the defensive formation gave off a final burst of light before shattering. Billions of locusts came crashing down. Hua Qinglu stood before the floor-to-ceiling window, holding a cup of tea. A few flower petals floated over the deep red tea. The floor-to-ceiling window in front of him was covered with talismans, and so were the surrounding walls. They faintly formed a hole. On the ceiling of the room, a small golden bell floated, and a simple golden bell formation was established. But it didn't give her the slightest sense of security. Suddenly, she thought of that tall figure and shook her head with a bitter smile. It couldn't be such a coincidence every time. She downed the tea in one gulp. How long she could last was up to fate. There was only one thing, and that was that he absolutely could not fall into the hands of the enemy. The cloud of locusts split into several large groups above the prefectural city, attacking various regions of the prefecture. After arriving in these regions, they split into several dozen groups again, attacking every single street. They were like a well-trained army. No, even an army could not be so coordinated. A group of homeless beggars fled madly through the streets, almost driven mad by the countless flapping wings. What made them feel even more despair was the buzzing that grew closer and closer behind them. A locust the size of a human head lunged at the young beggar at the very back. Its sharp mandibles bit into his shoulder, and blood spurted out. The young beggar screamed as he struggled desperately, but he was swallowed by the locusts that arrived afterwards. His screams came to a halt. A beggar could not help but look back, but all he saw was a gaping mandible lunging at him. A series of screams rang out briefly before dying down very quickly. The people who had been lunged at by the locusts were devoured very quickly. Not even their bones remained. All that was left behind was a ground littered with tattered clothes and dark red bloodstains. The strength of a single locust was probably not much greater than a wild dog, but their sharp mandibles and the way they flew were all incomparable to wild dogs. The most terrifying part was their bloodthirsty madness. The locusts that had eaten human flesh rapidly swelled, and their demon chi showed signs of condensing too. As long as they continued to eat, not only would they not die rapidly, but they could even become one of the countless clones of the soaring Locust King. This was why the soaring Locust King did not care about its losses. Regular locusts could be replenished with insect eggs buried deep underground, while clones could be transformed from regular locusts. They could constantly roll on like a snowball until there was no more snow left. At the very front was an old, gray-haired beggar. Every single step he took was more than 10 steps away from others. Even as he fled, he gripped a metal club firmly in his hand as miserable cries rang out. He suddenly stopped and turned around, staring straight at the incoming swarm of locusts. Insect-free world. With a flick of his wrist, he unleashed a series of blurs with the club. Over a dozen locusts were sent flying. "You damned demonic insects, I am the leader of the beggar sect," hung. Before the old beggar could finish his sentence, a gust of wind blew past. A giant locust lunged at him. He hurriedly used his metal club to block it. With a crack, the metal club was bitten in half. Duke Joe. He channeled all his internal energy and slammed his palm on the giant locust's head. Viscous liquid splattered everywhere. If it was a human or beast, they would have been dead for sure. However, the giant locust only paused for a moment before its mandibles continued to bite down. Crack. Duke Joe. The beggars wailed. An old head flew into the air, filled with disbelief. Before it landed on the ground, it was grabbed by a locust and started devouring it. The life force of insects had always been renowned for its toughness. Even the most ordinary of insects was like that, let alone one of the clones of the soaring Locust King. The soaring Locust King used regular locusts to deal with regular people, and it controlled clones of different powers to hunt down these humans who could still put up a fight. It did not blindly use the tactic of swarming them. Instead, it pushed its advantage in numbers to the limit, doing its best to devour as many humans as possible. It was like a cold chess player overlooking the chessboard. Even when they hid in buildings, they were unable to stop the locusts from breaking in. The most powerful clone of the soaring Locust King that directly led the army of locusts, the flying locust demon commander, stood in front of a gate in the city that was extremely difficult to breach. "Bitch, bitch, bitch. Get your ass out here." The flying locust demon commander swung its right claw violently. Light surged, and wood and rock were sent flying. The formations of the Hawkwolf Guard were ripped apart in a single move, leaving behind 4 terrifyingly huge claw marks. Kacha kacha. Crack. The floor-to-ceiling window in front of Hua Qinglu began to crack. Over a dozen talismans were reduced to ash, revealing a vicious face that was half human, half locust. It was less than 3 meters away. You're tuning into the Blissful Bookshelf YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.